Welcome to Game Thoughts, our podcast where we talk about games, video games specifically, and other related topics. And this is going to be episode 2. Technically, I did a few of these, a month or two ago. It was so experimental. It still is. But I took those off. I don't like them. I'm going to start over. We're going to try to start from scratch here. I have one episode up on my channel that I think I'll keep up. And this will be part 2. So, I've been wanting to talk about some stuff. Just different... Let me turn this down. Different gaming related topics. They come to my mind. Let me just adjust something. Okay. They come to my mind, over the days, and I want to talk about it. What I do primarily on my channel is I play games, and then I've been working on some music related content that's slowly coming together. I've taken so long. I'm going to go off on that for a second here. I've taken a year and a half off from making anything that it's really hard to get back into it for me. My guitar has been one of the biggest challenges. I haven't touched it in about a year and a half. And I want to say almost 2 weeks ago now, I just started doing it again. And it has been a fucking challenge. Because I don't have calluses on my hands anymore, my fingers. And I've been doing that. I've been practicing. I've been trying to play some stuff. I'm not some high level fucking magician when it comes to playing an instrument. But I felt like I was okay at it. And after practicing for a few days, my fingers, dude, they're so fucking tender. Just touching cloth, my shirt or something is painful. So it's going to take a little time before I can start doing that consistently. An hour or so of playing that thing and my fingers are fucked. So it's a work in progress, but we have multiple types of content that we want to make and that we want to put on our channel. And this is one of them. I like the idea where sometimes we can just talk about shit and it doesn't have to be this big fucking production where I have all this shit hooked up and I'm got all this audio equipment or I'm streaming, playing games. I just want to talk sometimes. And so I thought it'd be nice to have this podcast kind of format where we just talk, So I took a few notes here and I don't know, I'm going to try it. It's not something that I typically want to do is the same format that everybody else does, because I listen to podcasts and typically the format is people will reference what's the latest news of the week, and they'll reference a website where they got the news from, and then they'll go down the most popular fucking shit. It's every single podcast, they talk about the same exact shit. There's zero difference. There's no difference between any of them. You heard one, you heard them all. You're just getting a different person's perspective, maybe, is what you're getting. Maybe you like that person's personality, you like their voice, so you'd rather hear them talk about the same thing that the other 10,000 people are talking about. But it's I'm well, I'll try that too. I'm getting ideas from it, but I'm going to try to do my own kind of thing. So let's try. So first of all here, I got this from videogamechronicle.com. And this is probably, dude, I imagine all the big podcasts are going to be talking about this any day now, if they haven't already. I just saw this today and I was oh my God. You could take it out of context and really turn it into a shit show. You could really make this guy sound like a piece of dog shit if you wanted to. But I don't think it's supposed to be like that. He's a business guy and he's dude, this is what the data indicates. This is my job. I'm just stating the obvious here. But this was Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick. He said discs don't really make sense for the consumer. And Take-Two is like the parent company of Rockstar. And I think most people know, like, Rockstar announced, I'm pretty sure they announced, like, we're not going to be releasing a physical version of the new GTA game. And this is, their parent company saying, like, discs don't make sense for consumers. And I have a few things to say about it. First of all, I agree. I do agree. And I'll get to why I agree in a minute. But I don't like this part here where he calls us consumers, like we're some piece of shit. I'm just like a piece of trash that eats shit off the fucking ground. Like I'm like a fucking carp. I'm a sucker fish in the fish tank that eats the other fish's shit. I'm a consumer. I'm a piece of fucking shit. This might as well be, right? Like, I've talked about this before. This has become like this sort of industry standard. And people in big business think of us, all of us is shit. There's no respect for us peasants, us commoners. We are literally shit to them. Like, seriously. And using that word, consumer, that's a word they use. It's like calling us shit. Hey, those pieces of shit? The dog shit? It's like calling yourself dog shit. It's like a form of like manipulation and mind control. And everybody does it now. Everybody calls themselves a consumer, and it makes me sick to my fucking stomach. If that's how you think of yourself, then maybe you are a piece of shit. And I don't want to associate with you. I think it's time people start looking at words like that for what they are. That is like a form. There are many forms. That is like a form of fucking mind control. Stop it. So first of all, I have a problem with that kind of language. Fuck you, Strauss Zelnick, for calling me a piece of shit. And so that's my first thing I wanted to mention. But this game disc thing doesn't make sense. And like, he has, I don't know if I wrote it here, but I read it. Yeah, I didn't write it down. He mentioned, I want to say it was like around 90% of their business is all digital. So he sees that as the future. And like, he's right. Like, there's plenty of people out there. I occasionally listen to the Player One podcast. And those are like former EGM guys from back in the 90s. They obviously do different shit now than write for EGM, but that's like where they got their start. And they have a podcast they've been doing for like 20 years. And I'm pretty sure that one of the hosts on there, CJ, mentioned that like he went all digital years ago. And it was like the best decision he ever made. He feels so liberated that he no longer has to worry about this physical game collection. He has space again in his house. He doesn't have to worry about a collection of shit everywhere. And so for a lot of people, and this is someone, and there's probably, I'm going to guess there's a lot of people like him that they grew up during that time of physical media when it meant something, when it meant more than it does now. And they're kind of glad that they were able to let go of it. And I can relate to it in some regard. I can relate to it. It kind of sucks sometimes having all this stuff on shelves or in storage or in boxes. And I go back and forth on it. I'll talk about that maybe in a little bit here. But this whole move to digital and like game discs don't make sense. And what I was going to say about it is like, yeah, they don't make sense. Discs have always been shit. Discs themselves are shit. They suck. They're scummy as fuck. Right? What we need is a caddy to put the disc in. That's what we need. We need to bring the caddy back. What the fuck happened to the caddy? If you go back and you look at discs from like the fucking 80s, like when they started making CDs, they had caddies on them. Think of like a mini disc, but bigger. Or think of like an old floppy disk, your old computer. It's like the floppy disks. It wasn't just the magnetic disk outside of the case it was in, because then it would have been susceptible to scratches and dust and fingerprints. So it was inside of a protective case. And then some piece of shit, some guy in sales or marketing or, some company scumfuck was like, hey, what if we took the disk out of that so that the consumer, what's that word people use? Whatever. So that the consumer damages it, scratches the shit out of it. And then he's got to buy another one and another one and another one. And we'll make so much more fucking money. Right? The whole idea of discs has always been shit. So what I'm saying is put the thing back in a caddy. That's what we need. We need, yeah, it's missing half of the package, dude. We need the caddy back for the disc for the next Genesis. I'm going to keep talking about this because like my last video I did, and probably like the few podcasts I did before that I took down, I talked about physical media and I go back and forth on it. I'm probably going to keep talking about it because like I grew up with that stuff and I still have some of it and it's still a hot topic. So like, let's milk that thing. But I say we bring the disc, bring it to like maturity, put the fucking caddy back on that bitch, make the caddy translucent or transparent, give us different colors and put a color label on it. And I want it in a nice box with a fucking color manual. I want that manual to be in color, motherfucker. Strauss Zelnick. I want a color manual on that bitch. And I want a fucking color case. And I want it in the fucking caddy, bitch. And I want a fucking label. I want a manual in color, motherfucker. That's what I want. Yeah, discs don't make sense. I agree with you, sir. Put that bitch, give me the full fucking package, asshole. Consumer, fuckhead. What the fuck? So I wanted to kind of mention that. That's my first note I got here. Some of it I kind of came up with on the fly here, but like if we're going to have physical media, it needs to be the full fucking package. No half-ass in it, bitch. Right? Like they want to milk us for everything we've got until we're homeless and have no food, no water, no shelter. And like, what are we getting in return? Nothing. We're getting nothing in return. What the fuck is this? I'm not buying. That's what you get from me. Nothing, bitch. Just like you're giving nothing. I was thinking Remedy did this with Alan Wake 2. They didn't give us the caddy and the color manual, because I don't think so. I didn't buy the physical version. But Alan Wake 2 came out digital only. And then I want to say it was like maybe a year later, they released it physically. And what I was going to say, maybe it makes sense that you release a new game and it's digital. And, for some companies, it's going to always be digital. There's a lot of smaller indie companies out there, indie developers. They can't afford to print like 10 million discs. Their games are always digital. There's always been this like digital storefront for indie titles back when that became possible, back on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. That was the first time you started seeing those, the indie category. And that was like digital only on those storefronts. And then you started to see all the big companies be like, well, what if we did what they're doing? Those guys are poor. They're barely getting by and they can only sell their games digitally. What if we did that too, even though we have billions of dollars, and then we don't have to pay our employees? We can fire a bunch of people. We don't have to deal with like logistics and merchandising anymore. We can take advantage of the same thing that the poor people are. We can be scumbags because that's what we do best. And then they all started moving to digital only. They started hogging up the space that the indies were trying to exist in. They started stepping on them and shoving them out of the way and shit. It's fucked up, taking their seats from them. You know? What the fuck? Scumbag motherfucker. Motherfucker. But what I was thinking is maybe it comes out, these new games come out, and they're digital only for like the first 6 months or the first year. I say give them a year because we know how it goes now. They don't release a finished product. It comes out half baked. Literally half baked. It comes out, it's not even cooked. And if you're the dumbass that buys it day one for $70 or $80 and you're getting this unfinished piece of shit that runs like garbage, it's missing content, it has all kinds of glitches and bugs and problems. And then there's a lot of talk about it. Digital Foundry does a video on it and they're like, this is garbage. Here's why. And they list all the reasons. And there's like this outcry from the fan community. And then the developers like, we're fixing it. We promise we'll fix it. And then they patch it. And like a month or two later, a patch comes out to fix all the issues that should have been fixed before they released it to the public. And you might as well wait until they've done that for like a year. Because it normally takes them about a solid year to actually fix it and make it playable and worth your money. And then release it physically. Then release it physically. And I was thinking too, like maybe a new sort of physical medium makes sense. Maybe discs don't make sense at all. And maybe something new comes along that's better than a disc. Because this kind of goes into this topic too that I wanted to talk about here. There's issues with going all digital for a lot of people, myself included. I have a data cap that I exceeded in July. Like I exceeded it. I had to unplug my modem. And it's kind of wild to think. All I did was upload some videos to my YouTube channel, and just like that, my fucking cap was hit. And I was like, whoa, what the fuck? For about a half a month, I had to unplug my modem to ensure I didn't go over it, because then they'd start charging you overage fees. And that's a problem for, I imagine, a shit ton of people. Now, a lot of people out there probably have data caps, but they're maybe not really fully aware of it because they never hit the cap. They usually have a little bit of headroom. You just wait until it's digital only and next generation, like games are 200 to 300 gigs or more, because some of them now are over 150 gigs, close to 200 gigs. There's games out there now that are easily close to 200 gigs. Current gen. Now imagine next gen when it's more assets. Everything's going to be like lossless, larger file sizes. And we see how it, from my point of view, the way that the industry has been moving is like less about optimization and it's more about being just like wasteful and brute forcing things. And it's just like something that used to maybe be like kilobytes or megabytes. They're now like gigabytes for seemingly no reason. It's kind of ridiculous how large some of the files are that they seem like, why is this big? Why the fuck? Why is my video card driver like a half a terabyte? like why the fuck does it have to be that big? What is going on, dude? Are you kidding me? I guess it's one thing when you have like a lossless like video file or audio file or both, and it's all lossless. That makes sense. I can understand, but like you don't need to do that for like games, right? The stuff gets packaged and compressed. And if things are well optimized, I imagine you'd save a lot of space. But it feels to me like a lot of times it's like, well, yeah, but that's a lot of extra work. We don't want to do that. So they just don't do it. And it's not like, I've heard a lot of people say shit like they're so lazy. These guys, dude, it's not about that. It's about having like, what do you do with the resources you have? If you've ever worked on a team for a large company, you know that the people that are in charge, 9 times out of 10, don't even know how to tie their own fucking shoes. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what you do. They don't know how to make smart decisions about the business. They don't know what's going on the floor in production. They don't know what's happening like actually in the game development team, right? They're in a meeting and they're hearing something and they're relying on this data that they're being fed. And that's it. And they're making decisions based on like some numbers or what someone's telling them or what like a chart or a graph says. They don't know what the fuck you're doing. They don't know what it takes. And they're not making smart decisions about how your time is used and about what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And there's a lot of wasted time, a lot of wasted energy, a lot of going in one direction and then having the rug pulled out from under you at the last fucking minute. There's a lot of bullshit goes on in the real world, and it's not about people just being lazy. It's probably more about your boss just being a dumb fuck or just not really like they're paying attention to the wrong things, but maybe they just don't know, right? How do you get the right data? You can't always say, hire people that have experience as a developer. That's not always going to work. Those people aren't always going to be good leaders or decision makers just because they've done it for a long time. Sometimes they are, You look at someone like, and I mean, I didn't work with him, so I'm just going by like what I feel like might have happened. But like Satoru Iwata, when he was president of Nintendo, right? He was like this legendary programmer. He was like hardcore, like one of the best in actual like game development and programming. And he moved into the position of high level leadership. And that's extremely rare. That almost never happens. And it'd be amazing if that kind of thing could happen. But also think about it. Most of those guys that are working in like an engineering position, they're probably not going to make the best leader for an organization. It's difficult. There's no easy solution or right or wrong answer necessarily. But just due to the nature of the way that we currently function as people, it's really difficult to get somebody in one of those high-level leadership positions that actually can make smart decisions about running the fucking business beyond just looking at the only thing that they feel that they can rely on. And that's like raw numbers and data, which is often extremely inaccurate at representing the like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like the whole picture. It represents just what that data sample represents, and that's it. And that's not everything. There's so many things that don't get taken into account with that data, but it's all that they go on most of the time. It's difficult. I imagine. I imagine it's difficult. Maybe it's not. Maybe they're like, this is so easy, dude. And they're just sitting back with their feet up on the desk and like, they're just having like Copilot or whatever do it for them, probably. Imagine nowadays, a lot of these people are doing that. They're just when you talk about like AI, I occasionally use AI when it comes to like a search engine's AI tool to help refine some kind of data that I'm looking for. Like I was looking for some information on a game patch earlier today. I'm like, yeah, but what versions of the patch have they released since the game came out, and what was in those versions? I went to the official website. I'm on the website for like 30 minutes. Like, where is this? Why is this hidden? Why can't I find any information on these fucking patches? And then I type it into fucking like Gemini, and immediately it tells me every version of the fucking patch and everything that was done in each patch. And I'm like, that's all I needed. Oh my God. Like something like that can be helpful for me to like get me an answer quickly when I'm like doing like an internet search. It like refines something very quickly. I don't need to spend an hour. There's a waste of my fucking time for something like that. And to hide it, they hide the damn stuff. It's like they don't want you to know. But I imagine for a lot of like managers and people in higher positions at companies, when they talk about AI being like, because I think a lot of people like me, like peasant class people, they're like, this is a useless technology. It's garbage. I don't want it. I have no use for it. And it's like the use case is probably for your boss. They're probably not doing anything anymore for their job. They're having their AI program do it all because their job is the kind of job that can be run by AI. Your job can't. They still need you, but they're going to pretend that they're needed, but they're just having like Copilot or fucking, I don't know what all the companies call their AI models. I imagine they all got some really stupid names. Zeus. I don't know. God. They might as well be called, they probably are. If you look at the names, their code names probably represent various gods from mythology. That wasn't in my notes here, but we talked about it. Let me see, what else did I have here? But that's an issue with the data cap, I guess is what I was starting to get at. That's a big fucking issue. By the fucking way. Like if it was digital only, which it likely will be, I won't be able to buy games. Like I won't be able to buy a PlayStation 6. First of all, like, let's get that straight. That bitch comes out and it's like $1,500. I won't be able to buy one of those. You kidding me? And then if the games, they're probably going to want more money for the games, and the excuse and be like, well, the development costs more now, and we got to pay people more. The industry standard, blah, 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 has gone up, and therefore, blah, 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 data indicates, blah, 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 whatever fucking ever excuse. And they're going to raise the prices, surely, right? That's the part they haven't told us yet. Like, they did the first, like, gut punch of you're not getting physical anything now. And the next one is going to be when you see the price of not just the console, but of the games and the accessories. I mentioned this in my last video. I think I did on my Game Thoughts podcast. I'll bet you that the baseline console for the PS6 is just as an example. I'll bet you that motherfucker is like $9.99. And they're going to try to make it sound like a really attractive number. $9.99. And then they're going to compare it to like something in the world. To be like, you know, like when the Dreamcast did like $9.999, they're going to do the same thing, but it's going to be how much it is. And maybe they'll reference the Dreamcast. Just remember how cool that was, guys? $9.999 for ours. And you're going to be like, wait a minute, what did he just say? Did he say $9.999? Like, is it $10,000? Like, what the fuck? And they're going to be like, yeah. But it's going to be $9.999. And it's not going to come with a game. Obviously, they don't do that anymore. We don't get a pack-in game like we used to. What the fuck happened to those? Remember when we got Sonic the Hedgehog with the Genesis? Or like a great value for buying a new console. Remember when we got Super Mario World with the Super Nintendo? What the fuck? Didn't that thing come with 2 fucking controllers too? Like it came with 2 next-gen controllers and one of the best games on the platform packed into the box? The fuck? And like the Sega Genesis, Sonic the Hedgehog is a classic. It's a really good game for the time period. I still like the game. The first level. Green Hill Zone is amazing. That's all you got to play. And you can have that opinion that like, this is really good. You don't need to finish the game because like the farther you go in it, the worse it gets. But that first area is awesome. And then the zone after the labyrinth zone, I forget the name of it. I think it's the one after it, is pretty cool too. But then, I don't know, it's kind of a mixed bag. But that's an amazing pack-in, you have to admit. And I don't know because I didn't buy it when it came out. I didn't have one. But I'm wondering, like, did the original Genesis come with Altered Beast? If it did, that's also a sick ass fucking pack-in. They don't come with those anymore. We don't get pack-in games. And so like, it's not going to come with one of those. And I wonder if it's going to come with anything. I feel like it's going to be just a bare bones console, and you're going to have to buy the game. You're going to have to buy a controller. You're going to have to buy cables to plug it in. That's what they do in Japan. In Japan, they don't sell cables. Like, I remember like the 3DS, and I think the DS, and maybe even the GBA, maybe every handheld. In Japan, you didn't get a power cable to charge it. You had to buy that separately. That was just how they did business there. They nickel and dimed you. And I think that's maybe why, maybe to Sony, this isn't a big deal. Because, like, yeah, we've been fucking over our fucking own people for decades. And like, the Americans just aren't used to it yet. Or the Europeans just aren't used to it yet. But they've been doing it in Japan for a long time. They don't get power cables with their consoles. Maybe they don't even get like a video cable. I don't know. But I do remember, like, with the 3DS specifically, you didn't get the power cable to plug it in and charge it. So you'd buy the console, the battery would die, and then you're like, fuck, I can't charge it. And you got to go to the store and spend like $30 on the fucking AC adapter. And it's probably sold out, and you got to place an order and wait like a month for it. But they've been doing that for a long time there. And maybe that's what happens here with the PS6. It comes with nothing, just the console. And by the time you get done buying one game and a controller and all the cables you need to plug it in, it's probably like $1,500. I feel like it's going to be like, do you want like the proper full experience? It's probably going to be about $1,500. That's my guess. After like accessories and one quality game, right? You're going to want a game that justifies a brand new expensive high-end console. And I imagine they're going to have at least one of those for the launch. When you look at the PlayStation 5, I think that launched with the Demon's Souls remake. And I would argue that alone is probably would have been like a really solid, compelling reason to buy the console if you're a fan of those types of games. I think it's still one of the best games on the platform. It still looks better than most games on that console all these years later. And it still plays amazingly well. It's really good. And it's exclusive. I don't think that ever came out to shit. Not even on PC. So if they have something like that, right? Like, imagine they have a Bloodborne remake and it looks like next gen as fuck. Probably a lot of people are gonna be like, oh my God, I need to get this. I don't care if it's digital only. I must have it. And they'll justify the $1,500 price tag for it. Basically, you're looking at that game. You might as well imagine like that game costs $1,500. That's kind of what it is. There might not be anything else you can afford to play on it after that. What else did we have here? Because I took a few notes, because otherwise I'd forget. Another article, piece of news from videogamechronicle.com. They talked about Ghost Recon, Future Soldier, being free to claim on PC on the Ubisoft, what are they calling it? Ubisoft Connect. It's like their own storefront. I guess Ubisoft feels like they have enough games that it warrants like their own dedicated storefront. I've used it before. Like, I've gone on there to look around, and it's like, I'm not really interested in more than maybe one of these, but that game's going to be free to I play, I guess. Not even buy. You can just like download it, add it to your library. But I didn't really want to talk about that game. When I read that, I thought, oh, Ghost Recon. Like, I remember GRAW. Whatever that stands for, I forget. I remember GRAW. Whatever the fuck that stands for. Ghost Recon, Advanced Warfighter, maybe. I remember getting that on PC back in the day, like, dude, like 18 years ago or something. It was a long time ago. And that was one of the few games that supported the AGA PhysX card on PC. And for anybody that doesn't know what that is, like we used to get like really cool, innovative tech every once in a while on PC that you didn't see anywhere else. You know, you'd get like really cool sound cards sometimes, you know, video cards that would give you, especially back 20, 30 years ago, PC games were so different than console games. And you would see screenshots in magazines or something, or you'd be in the store and you'd look at, you know, if you were like me, a young person like in the 90s, looking at video games and seeing like the boxes of like Sega CD games and PlayStation games and shit like that, Saturn. And then you look at the PC games and you're like, it looks like this? PC games look this good? This looks fake. And I guess if you had like the best hardware, maybe. You used to get a lot of fake screenshots. And sometimes you still get that shit. But you get a lot of fake screenshots back then. But some of those PC games, like I remember looking at the original Alone in the Dark big box PC game in the store and being like, whoa, what the fuck? This looks like almost like a movie or something. Like it looks, I don't even know how to describe it, right? That was a game that came out before games like Resident Evil existed. And it had pre-rendered backgrounds with very early primitive polygonal 3D character models. You'd never seen anything like it in your life. And so when you saw this PC game, it was kind of like a survival horror adventure game. And there was just nothing like it on consoles. It looked so goddamn different. And a lot of those PC games were like that. And you'd have to have like really special dedicated hardware to do it. And I remember when this Graw game came out, the PC version supported this weird dedicated piece of kit called the AGA, which was a brand that used to exist. PhysX card. And it was like this name they made up. Sounds kind of cheesy. But it was a physics card. It was an add-in card, and it was a physics accelerator. This AGA company had come up with their own type of like physics software, I guess, that could be rendered, that could be like calculated and accelerated on a piece of hardware. Like you could technically do it, I think, on your CPU, but it put a huge burden on it. But if you brought their special physics accelerator, it would speed up that process and you could have like really advanced physics happening in real time. And they had tech demos for it. I actually have one. And the tech demos were impressive. You saw the tech demos and you're like, dude, if we start seeing shit like this in games in real time, that could be, like a game changer. It would be like a new frontier for a simulation, for a simulated experience. And we didn't really get much of it. Graw was one of those games that supported it, and it was pretty cool. You would see things like advanced particles, like more particles on screen when like a grenade exploded. It would look more realistic when the grenade went off. The way that it exploded, the smoke and particles that came off of it would look a lot more detailed and realistic if you had this PhysX accelerator. And it had some other stuff too that it did, but I just don't remember. I don't remember what all of it. I just remember the game supported it, and I remember thinking, dude, this is cool as fuck. And then there was a tech demo that I played on it. I can't remember the name of it now. There was a first-person shooter tech demo. It was just like a map that you walked around in and you would fight bots. And there was some kind of like gravity grenade or something. And all of like the debris and objects in the environment would get like pulled into this like vortex and they would spin around. And it looked so fucking impressive. And there was all this promise for this new technology. And then NVIDIA bought the company And I mean, you saw games that would say PhysX in the game, but like all that like amazing ass tech, the promise of what that technology was going to do kind of vanished. You would see the name PhysX in the title of a game, but I can't remember any instance where like the games that said that had like a mind-blowing physics. We're like, whoa, holy shit, that is like next gen. It was like NVIDIA kind of like bought the company and then just like, I guess, flushed it down the toilet. I don't know. Maybe they were trying. Like, I think that's something that NVIDIA has been doing for a while, is trying to find some kind of technology that would give them an advantage over the competition. To be like, well, we have this and you don't, and we own it. And that means that you can never have this. And now everyone's going to need our hardware. And I think they kind of did that with DLSS and ray tracing and frame generation. They've been trying to do it with those technologies, but maybe PhysX was something that they thought might give them that edge. And maybe it kind of did, but I don't think it really did. And as far as I'm aware, it's kind of just vanished. I'm not sure they even support it anymore. But that used to get cool shit like that on PC. And we don't seem to, I mean, you could kind of look at what they're doing now with DLSS and frame generation is kind of like that sort of technology. It is impressive. You can take a game that normally would be unplayable and make it playable. That's cool. Or, you know, you no longer have to go in and deal with dedicated anti-aliasing settings. I'm not an expert on it, but it seems like when you turn on DLSS, it seems like generally what happens is it does its own sort of anti-aliasing, and then all the anti-aliasing options in the menu are just no longer relevant because it's being done with DLSS, and it generally looks really good. So it's kind of like you could say a new technology that is impressive. I suspect it will be those technologies with the next generation of consoles that will allow you, or will allow the companies to do things that you just can't do right now. You know, like having that advanced, because like Sony's been doing it with the PS5 Pro. They've been kind of testing the waters with it. And then you see what Nintendo's doing with like that really primitive DLSS that they have in the Switch 2. It's allowing that system to have any kind of market relevance. If I feel like if the Switch 2 did not have that primitive DLSS support, I don't think it would have any market relevance. It would basically just be the Switch again, with no, it wouldn't be able to run games like Resident Evil Requiem or Pragmata. It probably couldn't even do it. But with that implementation, suddenly it can. And so you see Sony's been testing this like image upscaling with the PS5 Pro. And I imagine with the PS6, they're going to have really refined it. And I'm hopeful. I won't be able to buy one, almost certainly. But I'm at least excited to see. Hopefully, I want to be impressed. I want to see the next gen consoles, at least the PS6. I want to see that thing. Like, I want to be impressed by it at the very least. I want to see the games and be like, dude, wow, holy shit. That's what I want to see happen. And maybe they can do that with this advanced upscaling technology that will likely be in the next gen consoles. And maybe you'll start to see things happen that just weren't possible before. Because now, like when you look at the PC space, they still have to make those games performant and compatible with like every platform. Often all the way down to the Switch, which sucks, dude. Nintendo's been hurting the games industry for a long time now because like all these developers have to like, damn it, we have to support that piece of shit. That means we can't realize our vision fully. We have to make it look like a PS2 game now. And it's been a problem for like the last decade. A lot of big games come out and they look like a 2006 era, like a game for the Wii. They look like Wii games, but they're like in 4K or something. It's nasty. Seeing a game like that in 4K is disgusting. I don't want to see that, right? Like I want to see that, hide that. Yuck, you know? Yuck. It's gross. There's something to be said about having like lower resolution. You ever go back and watch like old, like 20 or 30-year-old like adult films? They look better because the cameras were lower resolution. And you see the new stuff. That's, you know, that's not a topic I have written down here. Maybe I'm going to talk about that for a minute. I just want to be careful what I say because YouTube will like ban my video. I've had videos get blocked and shit before. And I'm like, why? They don't tell you why. So I'm going to try to be careful. But like modern adult videos, they're disgusting. A lot of them. And what I mean by that is they remind me of like clickbait. They remind me of like YouTube and social media and Instagram and shit like that and TikTok. It's like there's no longer like real like producers trying to make like real adult movies. It's all of these like individuals thinking that they can do it on their own. And it's repulsive. It's the same kind of scummy shit you see on YouTube and TikTok and social media. It's gross. It like, that kind of connects to something else here that's been on my mind. It's like YouTube, which is where I currently have my content. And I'd like to look for other places to have some kind of like presence because I feel like I don't belong here. I look in like a feed, like here's what YouTube is recommending me. And all of it, every single bit of it is repulsive to me. It makes me sick to my stomach. And I feel almost like I'm being poisoned and smothered with a pillow or something. It's bad. And I have to like escape to my subscriptions. I'm like, hurry, click on it as fast as possible. Get me out of here. Get me the fuck out of here. And I get to my safe zone in my subscriptions where at least most of that stuff's filtered out. But even there, some of those guys are doing some of that shit. And a lot of the thumbnails that I see remind me, they're almost exactly like the spam emails you'll get from like some other country that's got a bunch of icons and emojis and shit in the title of the email. That they're trying to make it sound official, but to get your attention, it's got a bunch of like emojis and shit. And it's like, dude, the bank doesn't use emojis like that. Dude, you dumbass. I'm not going to click on that. You kidding me? And like the fucking YouTube videos do the same thing. These guys are all this, they're scumbags. These aren't content creators. They're scum fucking bags. It's the same kind of people. They probably have a side business where they're sending you those fucking spam and scam emails. That's one of their other businesses that they've got. Because it's the same kind of behavior. It's so sickening. And the whole platform is becoming poisoned with this shit. And you can't find anything meaningful anymore on there because it's being smothered by shit. It's disgusting. And I can't believe that YouTube isn't cracking down on this shit and doing something about it, dude. I mean, I can believe it because they're kind of scummy, their behaviors and their practices. And the idea that some of my content gets flagged is crazy to me. Like I was playing a fucking Dreamcast game and it got flagged as adult with no explanation as to why. Yet when I see the predatory scummy ass thumbnails, just the thumbnails for like 99.9999% of the content that's being shoved in my fucking face by YouTube, like that stuff is like 1,000 times more offensive than if I had like full ass nudity in my video. If I had done that, which obviously I didn't. I was playing I was playing like Sonic Adventure. Maybe that's what I was thinking. Like maybe because the characters in that game are technically naked, like Sonic and Tails and shit. I was playing Sonic Adventure and I was playing Sega Rally Championship 2 for just a few minutes. What else did I try playing? I didn't end up publishing the video because it got flagged as adult. And when I looked into it, it was like, okay, well, if this is flagged as an adult video now, my understanding is that YouTube like blurs out the thumbnail so that if anybody even did first of all, they probably don't recommend it to people anymore. They probably don't even recommend it to people. But if they did, if somehow somebody stumbled upon it, it would be blurred out. No one's going to click on it because they're going to skip by it. It's going to be blurred out. Their mind is going to tune it out. Though you would think that in the sea of shit everywhere, of everything looking the same now, it would stand out. And they'd be like, whoa, what's this? Because it would look so different than everything else. But I'm just like, I'm not even going to publish this. But like, to me, like the stuff that they're showing me is so much more offensive than whatever the hell it was in that Dreamcast video. I probably said something. I probably got mad because I was playing Seventh Cross Evolution, which I actually kind of liked. It took me like a full hour to even wrap my head around how to progress in that game. I was getting so angry and confused. And I'm guessing, because I don't know, YouTube doesn't tell you, I probably said something in my like rage that like flagged something in their algorithm. And I don't know. Let's move on. This one comes from Gematsu. It's where I saw that. I'm sure everybody reported on it. But Nintendo, they're adding Super Mario Sunshine. And some of this news is kind of old, but I haven't talked about it. They're adding Super Mario Sunshine to their GameCube Classics category, I believe on the Switch 2. I don't have a Switch 2. I don't have an interest in it. I don't like the Switch. I don't like the Switch, and I don't want a Switch 2. I have no interest in that thing. Maybe we'll talk about this in a second. Maybe and I mentioned this in my last video, my Game Thoughts podcast, if Nintendo does another cool handheld, kind of like the 3DS. I like the idea that Nintendo does a handheld like the 3DS, but without a second screen. It's just a 3S. I don't know what the fuck to call it. It's just a fucking one screen system. And maybe just like a slight visual improvement over the 3DS, but not as high as something like the Switch. And small like the 3DS, but with just one screen maybe. And it's small. I like the idea of the GBA SP concept. Like refine that, right? And you see like there's companies now releasing emulation handhelds that look like a GBA, and they're cheap. They're like under $100. They're cheap and they look cool. And they probably have way better screens on them too than a GBA SP had. And if Nintendo did something like that and it was affordable and they made dedicated games for it like they do on their handhelds or they used to, that might be of interest to me. And I think it might be of interest to a lot of people. And I talked about it at length in my last podcast. But this Mario Sunshine thing, I like the idea of Nintendo remaking that game because I feel like that game, it was flawed. It had issues and it felt kind of janky to play. But I feel like if they could go back to that, revisit that, and fix some of the issues and make the game control a little better, improve the camera, improve the movements, make it feel tighter and more responsive, and I don't know, like redesign some of the areas or whatever. I feel like that game had a lot of promise. It did. I really liked parts of that game and other parts I found frustrating. But it looks so fucking cool. It's such like a fun, happy place to be, this tropical vacation like island. And it's just like gorgeous, beautiful vibrant visuals. I mean, the water in that game still looks fucking amazing. That game still looks really good, actually. And I think it would be a really cool game to see remade with like modern graphics and improved controls with a better controller. Not that the GameCube actually had a solid controller, but it just wasn't quite there. You know, like if they had a second proper analog stick, I think it would have really made a big difference, and they didn't. But if, like, imagine like the Switch 2 Pro controller is supposed to be really good. Imagine something like that, and then a remake that's well made of something like, because a lot of people talk about remaking Mario 64. It's Mario 64. I feel like it wouldn't feel. I feel like maybe the game is maybe I'm wrong. I feel like it's maybe like a little too empty and short to warrant like a proper big remake. Like for the platform it was on, the time it came out, it was amazing. And it still holds up really well as an N64 launch game. But to see it completely remade, I don't know. I don't think so. Those levels are actually really small. Like the overall areas you go to are generally really, really fucking small. And I don't think it would hold up to like modern standards. And it works really well on the N64 controller and as a launch game. And it's like one of the first early 3D games. But to see it completely remade, I just don't think it makes sense. It's a great game for that platform at that time. And that's where it should stay, from my point of view. But something like Mario Sunshine, I feel like it just didn't get fully realized. And it has potential to be fully realized and to have some refinements made, some improvements made, and a better controller that works better for that kind of control. Like, because you're moving the character around. Really, you kind of need two sticks with that game. That like really nice solid sticks. And we have that now. And the game, it has some really impressive visuals for the time that would still hold up really well with a remake, not just like a enhanced version. You go to that first world that you go to, I don't remember the name of it, where there's a windmill and there's like a pool of water and the water's all reflective. It looks so fucking good. The water when you're like on the coastline by like the ocean looks so fucking good. Like in the water from your jetpack. I would love to see that kind of thing like brought to the next level with all these like cool water effects and water physics. I feel like that one could benefit from a proper ass remake. And that got me thinking about other games I'd like to see remade. And I just made like a small list here. So we're just going to kind of move on from those couple little pieces in news that I don't know. I thought I'd talk about a couple things to try it out. A couple, like, these are just, I listed 10 ideas for like remakes. There's probably like 100 more I could come up with. I didn't want to spend all day or all weekend thinking about it. I'm like, I'll just come up with 10 here. I looked at a couple of games in my collection. I'm like, that would be cool. And the first one I wrote down was Wave Race. And I mean, maybe it's not even a remake. Maybe it's just a sequel. But like, even the original N64 game, I think a remake of that would be amazing. We haven't really gotten an amazing ass game like that since the fucking GameCube, like the launch game on the GameCube, Wave Race Blue Storm. You know, that used to be a thing. Seeing games with like really, that was one of the graphical effects that would tell you like, oh, this is next gen, is seeing water. And then they just stopped doing it. But it's like, yeah, but we haven't seen the best of what we can do with water. You guys just stopped doing it. A lot of modern games that have water in them still doesn't look that good most of the time. Oftentimes, I will still when I play a new game, I'm like, let's check out the water. And there's many times I'm like, that doesn't look very good. What the fuck? This looks like PS3 water on a good day. Maybe. You know, I've seen better PS2 water than this. What is this shit? You know, like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Fucking water in that game is garbage. It's like trash tier water in that fucking game. Most of the time. It was a disappointment from my recollection. I think something like Wave Race could be cool as hell if they did it right with a remake or just even a sequel. But maybe the time isn't right because the Switch 2 just isn't a good enough console for something like that. It needs to be like a proper ass fucking piece of hardware. Another one that I thought might be cool. I got a few here from like different time periods, different console generations. I mentioned a remake of Super Mario Sunshine being potentially really cool. But what about Super Mario Brothers 3? Like a 3D game. Not like a 2D enhancement. You know, not like, oh, it's like Mario 3, but like 32-bit generation 2D. No. Like something kind of like Super Mario Odyssey, but better. But it's a remake of Super Mario Brothers 3. I think that could be cool as hell. It would have to be kind of a reimagining. Have the world map. You know, they did it in Ni no Kuni. Ni no Kuni had a modern, amazing 3D map. And then you would go into these dedicated areas and you could do something just like that in a remake or reimagining of Super Mario Brothers 3. That'd be cool. I think that'd be cool. I think that could be fucking cool. I'm not even like a massive fan of that game, but like I grew up when that game was relevant, you know, in the 80s. Maybe that came out later. But I had an NES in the 80s, and originally I was thinking, what if they redid Super Mario Brothers 2? But then I started thinking about it and I'm like, no, dude. Mario 3 would be way cooler as a modern remake or reimagining. Sliding down the hills with that cool fucking music, the world maps, just the really interesting creative like art style to each of the zones and areas that you go to, and all the cool fucking characters and enemies and shit in that game and all the different suits. I think it could really benefit. Like I think about something kind of like Super Mario 3D World even, but it's like a remake of Mario 3. Or maybe it's more like Odyssey. I don't know. Nintendo can figure that out. But I think a remake of that or reimagining of that could be really cool. Because like they're doing that Ocarina of Time remake. They did the Star Fox remake. I'd like to see them go back farther and do a remake of something like Mario 3. And then that also got me thinking, some other Nintendo games, it would be cool to have modern remakes or reimaginings. Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest. Because that game is kind of like an early 2D semi-open world like experience with a day-night cycle. Imagine that. Imagine Konami, you know, contracting some fucking developer to do like a really slick high-end, because they've been doing that recently with Silent Hill and Metal Gear. They've been making these modern, slick, new games and remakes that are good. And I do it with something like Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest. And do it right this time. Make it so that Simon doesn't die when his foot touches water. Let me swim in the water in the remake. And how cool would it be? Like there's the day-night cycles. You're going through forests and swamps, and the day-night cycle is changing, and the enemies are changing. And it would be kind of like a semi-open world action RPG. And you'd go to towns and talk to townspeople and maybe stay at inns. And there's all kinds of secrets to find. And oh, dude, that game could be cool as hell, I think, with a sick ass remake. And another one, staying with the NES for this one. I think this was the last NES game on my list. Blaster Master. I feel maybe that game doesn't need one because it's just so fucking good as it is. But I just remember I have such fond memories about that game and like it blowing my mind when I played it. Like, dude, this is so much better than I thought it was going to be. Holy shit. That could be cool. We don't get games like that anymore. You know, I don't know what I'd want to see with that though. Like maybe it's been too long for a remake of that game. That game would have been cool remade on like the Sega Saturn with like really sick 2D pixel art, like Saturn 2D. That would have been cool. I feel like the time has passed on that one. But it would have been cool. You know, like the Castlevania Symphony of the Night 2D graphics. Some of those 2D games on the Saturn were sick. And seeing something like Blaster Master like that would have been awesome. Mega Man Legends, I think would be a cool remake for Capcom to do with their RE engine. Path traced on the PS6. I kind of mentioned something kind of like this with my last Game Thoughts podcast. Capcom does maybe it's a sequel. Maybe it's like to get people excited for the sequel that they're working on. They release like, well, we're working on Mega Man Legends 3. FYI. But it's a ways off. But we know you guys have been waiting. You guys waited a long time for new Mega Man Legends. So coming out like in, I don't know, within a year is a remake of the first game, you know, using the sort of tech that we're going to be using for the sequel. And it's going to look fucking amazing, you know? Like you look at something like Pragmata in RE9 and then you imagine it, but like kind of stylized like Mega Man Legends and supporting like really advanced ray traced lighting because they're doing that. Capcom has done that with their newest games. They've embraced ray tracing and they've talked about how like they're going down that path. They see a bright future with that kind of technology. And so I think it could look really cool with something like Mega Man Legends. We haven't seen them do a game quite like that. And I'd like to see what that would look like. You know, well, because it would probably look pretty much like anime. It would probably look like real-time anime. It could probably look really good. Think about that. And I think a Mega Man Legends game would be fucking cool as hell. Either you remake the first one to get us prepared for the part 3, or you just do part 3. So that was one. Lunar the Silver Star. You know, I really like those early Sega CD Lunar games. The remakes on the PlayStation and on the Saturn, they were good remakes, but they felt like they were missing something. Something felt slightly, a little bit off. I don't know. I'm not sure what it was, but the originals, I have a fondness for those. They felt more mysterious and magical. And I think a modern remake, if done right, not some budget ass thing, it would have to be done right. You'd have like a real vision behind it and money. Could be fucking cool. But maybe they just aren't capable of doing that anymore. And speaking of, I mentioned this game earlier, Seventh Cross Evolution on the Dreamcast. I think a remake of that or a sequel to that could be really fucking cool. It's such a weird game. It's so unique and original and different. It's fascinating. It's intriguing. It's mysterious. It's weird. It's creative. And despite like my extreme frustration I had trying to wrap my head around that fucking game for about an hour and a half on that video that I didn't publish, eventually I started to make some sense of it, and I was able to start evolving my character and progressing into the next area. But that game has so many issues, dude. It has so many problems. And a remake or a sequel could really fix those problems. One of the biggest issues that it had was performance. As you're traversing through the environment, you've got guys that are just kind of like randomly spawn into the environment, enemies, and they start pursuing you. And once there's like more than 2 or 3 enemies after you, the frame rate's going to like this single digits. It becomes almost unplayable. And it becomes kind of miserable to play. And they could improve that with a modern game. There's so many cool ideas with that game. And we're not seeing, like, that's something that hasn't been done to death. Like you've seen with so many other games, so many other genres, so many other IPs. This is one that's kind of like, it's still clean and untainted. Nobody's defiled it yet and milked it dry. I think a fucking cool ass remake or even sequel to Seventh Cross Evolution could be fucking cool. And do you know who I could see doing it? I don't know who the fuck owns that, but I feel like that's a game that From Software could do. From Software. I thought it was one of theirs when I first played it, but I don't think it is. I think it's a different company. I'll bet you somebody could buy that fucking IP for cheap from somebody, because nobody's doing anything with it. I don't think anybody cares about it. That could be cool. And I feel like maybe From Software could resurrect that one. And then another one that I haven't seen mentioned, I haven't heard from in a long time, and I don't know how this would happen. Maybe it wouldn't be right to do it. Or if like the right team or the right person did it with the right sort of like intentions, it would be okay. Enemy Zero, a remake of Enemy Zero. That game was like kind of visionary and really fucking interesting. And it had these like, it was a Sega Saturn game by Warp, Kenji Eno, who passed away like years ago at a really young age. It was like one of his games. And all of his games, all of Warp's games were like, they were special. And he was kind of like a rock star or something. Like he was a fascinating dude. Enemy Zero was broken up into like full motion video CGI that you controlled, kind of like a point and click PC adventure game. And in between those sections was like first person real time 3D corridor, almost like a dungeon crawler, except instead of it like in a dungeon crawler, you will occasionally get into like a random battle, like in an RPG or something. But in Enemy Zero, you would have a radar that would ping like in Aliens. And all of the aliens in the game, because they were aliens, it was like a sci-fi game on a space station or something. They were invisible, like 100% invisible. There was no like silhouette. There was no like wavy heat signature. 100% invisible, completely. And you had only listening with your ears. Is it in you? You would have to listen, and you would, by listening, you could determine like, is it in front of me? Is it to the left of me, to the right of me, or is it behind me? And then you would have to like figure out where it is in relation to where you are in the environment. And then like the faster like the interval was for like the ping on the radar was like the closer it was to you from whatever direction you've figured out it's in. And you had one shot in a gun that you had to fire at just the right moment before it one-shotted, one hit, game over from this thing. and you would fire this gun. You'd have one single charge that you could release on this gun at a time. And if it wasn't perfectly timed, game over. And that game was intense, dude. You want to talk about fucking like survival horror? It was like survival horror, first person shooter, dungeon crawler, point and click, FMV, RPG adventure game. I don't even know what else to call it. It was a weird game. It was unique. It was creative. It was cool. It was sci-fi. It was kind of like almost like rebellious in a way compared to what everybody else was doing. It was so brutal at times. But seeing something like that done completely in 3D, because large parts of that game were done in this like first person full motion FMV. But we could do that now with something like, even if you did it with something like UE5, I feel like UE5 or UE6 would probably be a good fit for a game like that, because it's just small rooms and hallways. And you could make it look like better than that CGI with an engine like that and give it that cinematic look that they were going for. And it could be cool as hell to see a remake of Enemy Zero. And maybe while you're at it, you'd remake D, which is also that was like a completely full motion point and click Saturn adventure game by Warp that came out before Enemy Zero. But I feel like the right team, the right people involved could bring back, maybe somebody could bring back some of Warp's games in a modern way, but they'd have to be done well. Like it would have to have money put into it, you know? It would have to have some money put into it to do it right. Like you could tell, like there was no way his games were cheap. You think about what he was doing back in the fucking 90s. This shit looked so innovative and it looked for the time expensive. And I feel like the right people involved could do something special with some of those games. I think it'd be cool. Another one, and I think there's a lot of people out there that would like to see not just this one, but all three of them. Xenosaga, the PS2 game. I really like that first game. They went with like a weird art style for the sequel, and I never played part 3. But that first Xenosaga game is so fucking cool. And I replayed it last year and finished it again for the first time in like 20 years. You know, the first time I played it was like 2003 to 2004, like over the winter. It was right around the time it came out, I think. And I played it back then. And then I played through it again last year. And I'm like, damn, dude, this is still really good. And I didn't stop playing it until I finished it, which is rare for me, especially with an older PS2 game. Oftentimes when I play something like that, I like an hour or two in, I'm like, okay, enough of this. This just doesn't hold up. But with that game, it did. It's cool. And I'd love to see a fucking modern remake, not HD remaster, no. Remake with high-end, like expensive looking, proper ass fucking remake. It deserves it. Games like that, those Xenosaga games, at least that first one there. I'd love to see that. That'd be sick. Because we're not getting, like when you look at a lot of these Japanese RPGs that come out, they always look budget as hell, dude. They look like fucking Wii games. They look like Switch games. They all look so fucking budget and generic. And we're not seeing cool ass shit very rarely. The few times we see something cool, it's coming from like Monolith Soft, which did Xenosaga. And they're doing that stuff for Nintendo now. But we're not seeing too many other developers, from what I've seen, from Japan doing cool ass shit like that. You know, what was the one I played on the PS5? Ghostwire Tokyo was a really cool fucking Japanese game that looked expensive. Forspoken was a really cool Japanese game that looked, you know, it looked like they were pushing technology. They were trying something new. It was kind of innovative and different and looked very expensive. But a lot of that stuff just looks so cheap, so generic, so fucking like, no, thank you. And then the last one I have on my list here, I think could be cool if done right. It would have to be done right and it would have to have money put into it. Like you'd have to believe in this and really support it. It can't be half-assed. Skies of Arcadia, the Dreamcast game. You know, Sega probably still, like, Sega has so many fucking amazing IPs that they just kind of sit on. And I don't know, I'm assuming they just don't have the resources anymore. They just can't afford to do it, or they're not willing to do it because it would be too risky. But they have so many amazing IPs. You know, like Phantasy Star is another one. We don't get proper Phantasy Star games anymore. We get those online games, and even then they're so rare. It's cool that they're doing a new Virtua Fighter game. And from what I've seen, I don't know what to think about that one. You know, when I first heard about it, I was like, okay, it's going to be a proper ass new Virtua Fighter. I'm not a huge Virtua Fighter fan, but it's one of the few fighting games that I always end up getting into a little bit. You know, like I have Virtua Fighter 2. I used to have 3 on the Dreamcast, and I have 5 on the PS3. It's like one of the few fighting games series that I've actually owned and played over the years. And I'm like, you know, that could be really cool. They're going all in on this and they're making a proper ass, like next gen Virtua Fighter. And then they revealed like, oh, it's more like an adventure game with like story, and you're walking around in a city and going on quests. And it's like, what exactly is this? You know, is this going to feel kind of like a half-baked story mode in between battles? Is it going to feel like a compromised game in both regards? Like it's not quite the fighting game I was expecting or the open world adventure game, RPG kind of thing? Or is it going to be both things and done really well? Is it going to be like what I imagined Shenmue was going to be before it came out? I'm curious, and I'm worried I'll probably be let down by it. Like it's going to end up finally coming out and it's going to get like really bad reviews or something. I hope not. I hope not. It's got a studio working on it that has made some great games. And if Sega's invested, like fully invested in it, maybe it does have a lot of potential. But Skies of Arcadia, I think would be a really cool remake. It was just 10 games I thought I'd mention there for something to talk about. And then there was like all this talk that's been going on about like the end of physical media, and then about like the games industry being in trouble, so many people losing their jobs. These things are all true. They're all happening, but it's the kind of thing that happens everywhere all the time and nobody cares or talks about it any other place. You know, if you think about, I get it when you're passionate about something, you've got a hobby, you have an interest in something. So you're paying attention to that thing more closely than other things you're not so interested in. Because it's like, well, I like playing these games. And then maybe because you like playing games and it's your hobby, you listen to some podcasts. Maybe you read some articles online, or maybe you're part of some forum groups on whatever place that you go for your like social interaction on the internet. And the people on those places are going to be more vocal about the problems in the industry because that's the stuff that gets attention. And so you're hearing about all the negativity. That's all you're hearing about. You're just hearing about the negativity all the time. You're not hearing about all the positive things. You're not hearing, right? Like maybe there's some like really cool ass shit going on behind the scenes right now at a ton of developers. Think about how many games are being made right now in the world. It's probably more than you could ever play in a lifetime in 1 year right now. Like in this 1 year, there's probably more games being worked on than you could ever play in your lifetime. And I'll bet you there's some amazing shit happening at more than one of those companies. And those people aren't all on the fucking chopping block. You know, like what's going on with the Cyberpunk 2077 sequel? We haven't heard shit about that. I'll bet you they're hard at work on it. And it's probably going to be really fucking cool. How about The Witcher 4? You know, what about Alan Wake 3? Or whatever else Remedy might be cooking up behind the scenes for the future. I'm sure they've got a roadmap beyond just one game. There's companies out there that are doing amazing shit. And you're not hearing about those guys constantly getting shit canned. And they probably have roadmaps for the next 10 to 20 years of things that they would hope to be doing. And that way that they've got shit ready to go when they have that opportunity. They're not just going to do like, well, we haven't really thought about what we're going to do. I'm sure they've got some shit that they'd like to do. They've got some stories they're working on. They've got some ideas for their next various projects that they would like to get greenlit, but they could probably realistically only get one or two of them greenlit at a time. But they probably have more than one that they can pitch. And any one of those would probably be great to have the opportunity to make. And you're probably getting a lot of that going on throughout the world in all different countries, all different parts of the world, from all different cultures. And no one's talking about all the amazing shit. When something amazing gets announced, you know, like when they revealed The Witcher 4, it was just kind of like, oh yeah, I figured they'd make another one. You know, no one was like that excited about it. It seemed like, but like you hear like, oh, so Microsoft's reorganizing, they're laying people off, and it's like, those guys are fucking garbage. Fuck them. Fuck those fucking. Like, think about it though. Like, it sucks if you're there and you've lost your job or you're in that work environment and things are toxic and you're seeing people left and right leaving and you feel like the walls are closing in around you. I'm sure it's horrible. And it's like that all over the world in every industry. You know, like, what about the bank? Like, I'll bet you the bank had some layoffs this year. Are you all up in arms about like the guy that lost his job at the bank? About the few thousand people that got laid off from the various banks around the world? You probably don't give two fucking shits about people losing their jobs at the bank. Because, well, I'm not a bank person. I don't care about the bank industry. I don't play with the bank. You know what I mean? There's probably shit like the Walmart, you know, or some kind of retail store or restaurant chain. There's probably people constantly losing their jobs there by the thousands. And nobody's talking about that. No one cares. That's not going to get a bunch of fucking headlines and a bunch of angry people having debates on the internet. It's not as easy to like manipulate people and get conversations going in different directions when it's talking about like how many people lost their job at the shoe store. You know? No one cares about this guy at the shoe store. That poor guy. I feel like people lose perspective really easily. And they're so easily manipulated and swayed. And myself included. I get swept up in that shit sometimes. But I was like, I did read in the midst of all this talk, I was reading an article somebody wrote, and I was going to reference it here because it's a cool site. If you like video games and you like people that still write professionally about games, but they do it from their own space because like the websites of the past don't really exist anymore. It's like magazines, you know, they're gone pretty much, and it sucks. That's another topic I'd like to discuss at some point. I feel like the time is about right for somebody to do magazines again and to do it right. The way that The way that information is produced and released on the internet sucks. It's basically just like it's like a garbage dump. It's like a recycling plant or something. It's just like shit in, shit out. It's miserable. There's nothing. I basically don't engage with it. I hear things on podcasts. I read a few articles here and there, and that's about it. And even that kind of sickens me because it's so like, it's been ruined. It's dirty. It's tainted. It's poisoned. It's corrupted. It's no longer like a good thing. It's no longer like a nice time to read something about the hobbies I'm interested in. There's like nothing I'm interested in now that I can read about and enjoy. Anything, dude. If I'm interested in like music or audio equipment, electronics, movies, video games, anything that I can imagine that I would be interested in or have some hobby in, because it's all on the internet now, and because of the way that fucking shithole operates now, it's all become the equivalent. It's like the YouTube thumbnails. It's like the scam, shit ass emails that you get in your spam folder. It's all like that. Every single fucking shithole on the internet has become like that. And there's like it's seemingly impossible now to find a place to go when you want to find like something interesting to read about, to have like, I have this hobby, I have this interest, and I want to learn more about it. I want to see what's developing in the world, like news, or talk about it with like-minded people. It's all become this like shitified garbage. And I feel like having magazines could help to kind of stabilize that a little bit. Because a magazine, just due to the nature of the medium, it becomes curated. It's like once a month, you get a small collection of what we consider to be like the most like important things to talk about or worthwhile things to talk about. It's not just how much shit can we shove down your throat every day. Here's a few key things that make sense to talk about this issue. And we'd like to do that. And then there's some previews, there's some reviews, maybe there's a rumor section. And the way that ads were always handled in magazines was so much more tasteful than the way it's handled on the internet. When you had a magazine, ads were either like on their own dedicated page, or they were in their own dedicated section in the magazine, often both. There would maybe be a few ads in between articles, and I'm going to guess those were maybe they paid a little more money for those. And then there would be like an ad section, kind of like filler content in the magazine would be like 10 or 20 pages of ads, but they were all in one section. And some of them were actually kind of cool to look at. I would sometimes learn about new games and new products from the ads. Here's a new cool controller coming out. Here's a new game coming out that I didn't see covered in the magazine, but looks cool. And it didn't feel scummy and disgusting like it does on websites. And it didn't like impact my ability to read an article I was interested in. Because now when you try to read an article, it's like an ad all over the fucking screen, everywhere. Video popping up on top of video, fucking ad on the left, on the right, in the middle. You're starting to scroll down the article, and then suddenly it's like another article is there trying to get you to read this one instead. And like, wait, what the fuck is this? What am I reading all of a sudden? This isn't what I was reading. What is this? And then you got to like scroll past that to get back to your article. And it's like the most maddening, disgusting scumbag shit. And we need something like magazines to remedy that, because you can't do that with a magazine. And like magazines could have a little more control about how the content is formatted and distributed in that medium. And it would be curated. That like the difficulty would probably be getting people to pay attention to it and to care about it. But guess what? That's easier now than it's ever been because of the internet and social media. You know, back in the day, your only option was like the little flyer, the little slip in the magazine. You'd be in the store maybe looking at a magazine and you'd see the little card in there and be like, maybe I'll order from this. Maybe you'd buy one issue from the store and then you'd fill out the little form and mail it to get 12 issues. But now that can be done all over the internet, right from your pocket, from your phone. You know, these magazine people could have outreach and outreach to potential customers from so many different places on the internet now that they could potentially, right? Like I would imagine to have a successful magazine, you wouldn't need to have like 10 million or 100 million subscribers. And if you could somehow get yourself onto all these different social media platforms and even have a way to buy the magazine through places like Amazon or something, I feel like you'd have a lot better chance. And there seems to be so much demand for physical media. I mean, you're only hearing from the most vocal people oftentimes, which is true. But there's so many vocal people right now about like the end of physical media. I'll bet you most of those people would buy a fucking cool new magazine if it was done well. You know, I love this idea of a nice magazine. I actually subscribed to Retro Gamer. Well, a few years ago. It was like 12 years ago, probably more. It was probably 12 to 14 years ago. But I subscribed to Retro Gamer when I had more money back then. I could justify it. That bitch was like $120 for a subscription for 12 issues because I was imported. And I didn't get like fucking 70% of those issues. I didn't even get them. And I kept emailing the company and saying, hey, is there a problem? Why am I not getting any of my issues? No, everything's fine on our end. And then it's like, well, we'll send you a couple extra. And like, I'd get like one and then I wouldn't get any more for like 6 months again. And so I ended up just canceling it, but it was an awesome magazine. And like, I paid a lot of money to get a couple issues of that. And I could see if it was something that was like, what is it? The word domestic? If it was domestic, I think that's the right word. And it was like in, your own country, it would probably be a lot cheaper. And if it has to be done well, dude. Like it has to have good art. It has to have a nice layout and format. And it has to have like meaningful content in it that's not completely intrusive with all the ads. That needs to be done tastefully. There needs to be pushback on some of these ad people. Like, no, we're not doing that. Because like, I feel like they're dude, like the ads I see now, like the ads that you would get in magazines back in the day would be for content that made sense, right? A gaming peripheral. Sometimes it was dumb looking, like, dude, no one's going to play with that controller. Get out of here. That's stupid. But it was still a gaming controller, or it was a game. And some of those games looked cool. It can't be like ads for like fucking dick pills and like, the kind of shit that you see in YouTube video ads. It can't be that trash. It needs to make sense for like the medium that it's in. Otherwise it's going to be like it's being poisoned again. Like the internet's leaching into the fucking thing. But I like the idea of something like magazines, at least in a limited capacity, coming back. Every once in a while, somebody tries it. I want to say Dave Halverson, for all the shit he gets from people, he has tried it so many times. And he to some extent, pulls it off, dude. Some of my favorite magazines had him at the top of the ladder there. Maybe working for him sucked, but I'm just saying, like, the magazines that he was part of were often some of the best, dude. It's true. Play Magazine was one of my favorite magazines. And then what was that other one that came out after or maybe it was before Play. I forget the name of it. Oh, it doesn't matter. A cool new magazine, or a few of them, I think could make sense in this like current climate of shit. But this kind of like, I kind of got off topic there. All this negativity about the games industry is what I started to go on about. I stumbled upon this website that I go there every once in a while. I'm not a heavy user of the internet. I'm really not. There's like a couple of little things I do here and there. And for the most part, I'm disengaged with it. The stuff that Google, like the Google like news feed that I get, the stuff they try to recommend me in the last like 6 to 8 months has become so irrelevant to my interests that I don't know what is going on. And I suspect maybe it's just because I don't engage with the internet that much, that they're like, they don't know, they don't have like an accurate profile on me. I'm an anomaly in the system or something. Like the stuff, I used to get a news feed that was somewhat relevant to my interests. The last 6 to 8 months has been garbage. Like nothing interests me. I see it. I'm like, what is this? And I just close it. I'm like, I'm not even looking at this. Get the fuck out of here. Where is this coming from? Like, why would you ever think I would be interested in that? What the fuck? And it's been getting worse and worse as the weeks and months go by. And I'm like, maybe I just don't use the internet enough. And they like don't have they can't profile me. They're like, I broke the system or something. I don't know, man. But there's this site. It's called moegamer.net. And it's by Pete Davison. He's like an industry veteran. He's been writing in games media for years and years and years. You know, he's been there since like the beginning. And he actually writes really good articles. He's like one of the few writers that still writes. He writes really good articles. And he's able to like write things in a way. He's able to like articulate and write things in a way that I don't find repulsive to read. One of my problems, one of my issues with a lot of writers is that they're kind of full of themselves and they seem to think that like they're special and it comes off in the way they write. And when I read it, I'm just like, shut the fuck up. And I don't want to read the article because it sounds like it's somebody that's kind of talking down from me. They got like their nose tilted up at the sky, you know, like they think their fart smells good or something. And it's repulsive to me. I don't want to smell that shit, dude. But when Pete writes an article, you can tell he's just like, he's a smart guy and he's passionate and he has knowledge and experience. And he's just doing what he does. And he does it. He writes in a way that reminds me of like the websites of yore, you know, that they don't exist anymore because those guys are gone. Those guys don't write for websites anymore. They went and got like a job, a corporate job somewhere or something. And you never heard from them again. But he writes on his own like personal blog or website or whatever on this moegamer.net site. And he writes articles regularly to this day on there. And he had a whole article on there. What was it called? It was under a category he calls one shots. And it was titled, I am furious about the state of my hobby. And it was a long article. Like you might not be interested in everything he writes about, you know, because he often writes about games that he's interested in or passionate about. And it will be games from all different generations. But the name of the site's Moe Gamer. So a lot of the games kind of tend to be in that sort of category. But from what I've seen, actually, a lot of his newer content is not. He's been kind of writing about different stuff recently. And I just pulled out one little fucking sort of line from his article. Because it's like, I recommend the article. I think it was an interesting read. But he referenced one of Atari's previous CEOs, this guy named Ray Kassar. I don't know that stuff, right? Like, I'm not some historian on games. You know, I might have been playing games since the 80s, but for me, it's always been like, it's just like a hobby. I don't get super fanatical about it and go into like these deep dive, obsessive research phases. I know little bits here and there about things that I pick up over the years, but I don't go in and I didn't know who this Ray Kassar guy was. Like, I don't know who all this like CEOs and shit are of every company. But he was referencing like this guy apparently, like it kind of hints at sometimes like maybe some of the issues that come from some of these people that work in upper management jobs at these large companies. And just like the disconnect they have with the company that they're running and the people that work for them and what those people actually do and what they're actually worth and how they should really be treated. This guy had no respect for his employees. He was the CEO of a big tech company, a big game developer, Atari. Atari used to be fucking huge. You have to keep in mind. And he was comparing game developers that worked for him to the quote that came out of this guy's mouth was towel designers. And while this guy had no experience whatsoever in game development of any fucking kind, he believed that anyone could do what they do and that they were disposable. I mean, that's the sort of mentality that comes from some of these people that work in a upper management position and in executive positions at large companies like this, like Microsoft. They have a disconnection with reality. And that's part of the problem, for sure. But at the same time, like, it's a complex issue. I don't have the answers. I imagine nobody really does. You know, like the people, like I was mentioning earlier, you can look at somebody like Satoru Iwata and think, we need more people like that in these management jobs. But like I said, a lot of those people that came from his sort of background, they probably don't really qualify for that type of job. And they may not actually have any interest in that kind of job. And the people that are creators or the people that are doing the technical things in games development or in any sort of creative medium, right? They're not always the best fit or have any interest in being like the numbers person or the business person. It is such a different category. It's a different field. But both things are kind of needed for there to be like this sustainable growth with an industry or a medium like that, unless you're just some small indie guy. Like if you're like one person working from home, maybe you have a small team of 2 or 3 people and you all work from home. It's a husband and a wife or something. That they can pull that off. But as soon as you start getting a team together and you've got like 10, 20, 30 people, and you have to be responsible. Somebody has to be responsible for everybody's jobs, everybody's salaries, HR, insurance, like all of these like big boy adult things start coming into the picture. And you're going to have people like, well, I expect this if I'm going to work for you, you know? And like all of a sudden things have to start changing about the way that the company operates and the kinds of people that have to work there. And eventually, you know, you're going to, like, it just seems to naturally happen. There's some shitbag comes into the picture. It always happens. some piece of shit ends up getting a chair or an office or a desk, and everybody has to answer to this fucking clown. Sometimes you're lucky, right? And like a company has like a really solid leader, but eventually that leader resigns, quits, moves on, gets fired, dies, retires, and they're replaced with maybe what they thought was a good choice, but it was somebody who was like in disguise. They were disguising themselves, and they're really a fucking piece of shit. And that happens, and it sucks. What do you do? And then I thought maybe I'd talk about some games I've been playing, because that's all I got in those sort of topics for right now. So we'll just kind of move on. On my channel, I've been trying some different things, right? Like I've mentioned this before. My original idea for starting my YouTube channel was I wanted to play retro games and film it on my CRT. And I tried to do it, and I just don't have the right setup. I don't have the right equipment. My camera doesn't perfectly synchronize with the TV's refresh rate. So it has that line, that scrolling line. Some consoles look worse than others. I found that the Super Nintendo actually looked the best. And I think that the refresh rate of that console, the way that I don't know exactly how it works. Like the way that it's refreshing is a little bit different than the other consoles. Like it's not like 59.9 or whatever the fuck it is. It's like, I think it's like 60 point something. I don't know the exact number. I don't remember, but it's slightly different than pretty much all of the other consoles. And the line is less noticeable when it scrolls, but still they all have some kind of issue. I didn't have the right setup, the right equipment. It just wasn't working very well. But that was my original idea. I thought, I have a game collection. It's not vast, but it's decent. I have a nice assortment of Sega CD games, Sega Saturn games. I have a pretty solid collection of PS1 games. Like I've got some of the really desirable RPGs in there, you know, like I've got all those Mega Man Legends games, like Legends 2, and The Misadventures of Tron Bonne, and Xenosaga, and I have like most of those Working Designs games. I can't remember them all off the top of my head at this very moment, but like I've got a bunch of really cool games. And I've got them going back to like Genesis and Super Nintendo up to like PS5. And I want to do something with these so they're not just like rotting on a shelf, slowly disintegrating. I want to try to do something with them while they still work and while they're still like relevant. And I was trying to do that, but I just don't have the right equipment. And over time, my setup here has improved a little bit. You know, I've since moved into my little music studio that I have in my apartment here. Like I turned my bedroom essentially into a little music studio, and it was my creative place during like the whole pandemic nightmare. And I decided like, let's do my YouTube stuff in here. It would work better, but I can't have my retro games in here. There's like nowhere to do it in here. I can't bring my CRT in here, and I can't film that stuff. I don't have the right equipment. So I kind of transitioned into using my PC for everything in here, which works better in some cases. You know, I can play PC games now. So like that's what I've been doing recently. We started with the retro stuff. I would love at some point to have the ability to do that. You know, I look at some of this stuff just as an example, because it's one of the few channels I can stomach. I'm sure a lot of people do this kind of thing. But like Jeff Gerstmann, he does his NES reviews. They're not reviews. They're like ratings. Like he rated the NES games, and then he moved recently to the N64. And the cool thing about the N64 videos he's doing is that he's using a real N64. I believe he's using it in his actual N64 via S-Video plugged into his RetroTink 4K. And then that's, I'm assuming, going into a quality capture card. And so like that's how he's doing the N64 stuff. I'm pretty sure that with the Nintendo, he was using emulation for all of that. But with the N64, he's using real hardware with the upscaler and a capture card. I would love to do something like that if I had all of the equipment. I just don't really have the right setup for that. But someday, some point, I would love the ability. Because like in here, I would need to have like a second TV. I have one monitor in here for my computer and that's it. So I would have to have like a second display to do that. And I would have to have a nice capture card. I'd have to have an upscaler, a proper one. I have an original like version 1 OSSC, and it only works so well, and it only works with certain consoles, with certain cables. Everything has to be so specific. And then on top of that, I don't have a quality capture card, and I don't have a second display in here. It just wouldn't work with this setup. But eventually, at some point, I would love to revisit in the future this idea of doing. Honestly, I would like to, at some point, I would like to experiment with direct capture of consoles, but I would love to film CRTs somehow. I would need like so much new shit, dude. It would just have to be like a future endeavor because I would need a new camera and probably a different CRT. I have one of those late model Sony Trinitrons with the flat screen, and it looks really nice in person, but it's, I don't know, it doesn't film very well. Part of the problem too, from what I saw, the bezels around the screen have speakers in them, and it's got all these little dots, and the camera captures that gets into focus. And just due to the nature of like the way the image looks on the CRT, like the recording of that like can't handle the kind of weird detail and fidelity that you get from the TV, and also seeing the sharpness of those little dots from the speakers. And it just turns into this pixelated blob. And then when it goes to YouTube, it basically looks like 140p or whatever. It looks like trash. And I feel like part of the problem was those speakers. And then it's the image on the screen. It's like, it's too sharp or something. And then you get all the Moray and shit. I just don't have the right setup for all that. So we've moved to PC for right now. And I've been playing some PC games on my channel. We just recently did Silent Hill 2 remake. And I played through the whole game. It ended up, because I ended up doing like 2, sometimes 3 hours for a session. And it ended up taking 13 videos. I thought it was interesting. It was like exactly 13 videos to play through it. And I finished that, and I really fucking like that game. I think Silent Hill 2 Remake is a fucking awesome ass game. And it's one of those examples where Unreal Engine 5 makes sense. I think Unreal Engine 5 was a great pairing for that game, but it doesn't work with every game. With that one, it worked well. And now I'm currently going back to Forspoken on PC. You know, I played that game on the PlayStation 5 a couple of years ago. And that was one of my favorite games I had played on the PS5. I went into Forspoken really like, I was not feeling positive about it. I was very like, what's the word I'm looking for? You know, I'm like questioning it, like, man, I feel like this is going to be garbage. Because leading up to it, you know, at first, I guess like to go back a little bit, I remember seeing the Agnes's Philosophy tech demos that Square Enix was showing off. It was like they were showing off the Luminous engine and what it could do paired with NVIDIA. It was like this collaboration with NVIDIA, and it was a tech demo. And it was like, this is the future of Square Enix in collaboration with NVIDIA. And if you remember, Square Enix was collaborating with NVIDIA for a while. When they released Final Fantasy 15 on PC, they did so in collaboration with NVIDIA, and they had all of this like new content for the PC version of that game that never to this day came to consoles. And it used a bunch of like new technology that I want to say was due to that collaboration with NVIDIA. You had like all of like new assets. Like the foliage was all different in the environments. There were new effects. Though I think maybe even the lighting was significantly enhanced. Like the game was like pretty drastically changed for the PC version and improved visually. And I want to say it was in collaboration with NVIDIA. And that was like their first proper ass Luminous Engine game, if I'm not mistaken. And at the time, and I think even still to this day, it's really impressive. And then they had this Agnes's Philosophy tech demo that looked like fucking amazing. It looked like CGI, but it was all real time, running on, I think it was like an SLI system by NVIDIA. I don't remember the exact specs now. Might have been like dual GTX 680s. Maybe they were 980s. Might have been 980s, maybe even 1080s. I can't remember what generation they were. But I think they were SLI. And it was all in real time. And it was like really impressive. And I remember thinking like, okay, this looks like a new game or something. I would love to see them do a game with this character and in this world. This looks cool. And then when they announced Forspoken, it looked kind of reminiscent to Agnes's Philosophy. It looked very reminiscent to it. And I was excited for it. And then a lot of time went by and it was like you didn't really hear about it anymore. And when it finally resurfaced, it looked like they kind of changed some things about it. And a lot of the press, the gaming press, whatever you want to call them, they were kind of shitting on it. And then I remember the game came out and I read some reviews. I watched some video reviews and it was like really poorly reviewed and people were shitting on the game essentially. Trash game. And I was disappointed, but I was like, I guess it's bad, you know? And then it went on sale. It went on sale for like fucking $17, I think. No, I think it was it was either 16. It might have even went down to $14 now that I think about it. Dude, it was like really cheap. Brand new physically. I bought it off Amazon. I think it was like $14.50, maybe. I think. It's hard to remember the exact number, but it was really cheap. And I'm like, for this price, I'm going to give it a try. This is so cheap, I might as well. And if it sucks, it wasn't that expensive. It looks like it could at least will be visually impressive. I'm curious, right? And I get the game and I don't know, I had it like on my shelf for a couple of weeks. And then eventually it's like, okay, I'm ready to try this one out now. I'm ready to, you know, because I want to be committed. And if I'm currently like playing something else, I'm not just going to like throw this other game in. And that's the other problem too with these modern consoles. You can't just pop the game in and play it. It's like, well, I've got to set aside half of a fucking afternoon or like the whole afternoon because I've got to fucking make sure I've got to do like storage management on the console because it's only has like 800 gigs of storage in it. And all these games are like 150 to 200 gigs a piece. So I'm going to have to go in and manage my storage and clear up space and decide what's okay to delete and what isn't. And then I've got to put the game in and wait about an hour and a fucking half for it to install, you know? And then by the time it's done installing, like I'm already like doing something else. I've already like changed my mind or whatever. You can't just pop these things in and play them anymore. Which is why another reason why discs are, yes, they're a bad choice. Zelnick or whatever that fucker's name was, the guy calls us all garbage. I mean, it's just his words, not mine, dude. That's what consumer means. That's not a fucking nice term. Yeah, discs suck. Some kind of really high speed storage medium that's like a cartridge would be preferred. You just put it in there and it reads so fast from it, and you don't have to install it. Because you know they could do it. Look at the kind of speeds they're getting in the data centers. It like puts to shame anything you'd get at home. Any sort of like, what's the word? I don't want to use the word consumer, but any kind of like product that you would get for your average like home user is like nothing compared to some of the enterprise shit that they're using in data centers. They have so much speed, so much bandwidth that accessible to them. And you know, like if they really wanted to, it doesn't need to cost as much as they're only putting those prices on there because they can get away with it. They know, yeah, people like us can't afford and won't pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for a fucking basic bitch computer that's going to be outdated in 5 years tops. But they know that the business people don't see the world like that. And as long as they believe it's worthwhile to their business, they'll spend whatever the hell it needs to cost. Like if it costs $100,000, $500,000, $1 million, they'll pay whatever. Yeah, give me what do we need? Like 10 million? That's what my tech guy said. We need like 10 million of these things. And they figure out a way to do it all of a sudden. Suddenly the money frees up. And that's the reason why this shit's so expensive. Because they know that they can scam these dumb fucks into buying it for that price. And you can see, it's like seems so clear now what's happening. Because every time NVIDIA, you hear like, NVIDIA, they're so good. They're such great people. They're helping another company out. They're loaning them another like $3 billion to do them a solid. Because Jensen's such a great guy. He's got so much money. He's willing to help these other smaller people out and give them a chance. No, that's not what's happening. He's giving them like $3 billion. And then they're signing a contract that they're going to buy $3 billion of NVIDIA hardware from him afterwards with that money. And then that money ends up going back also, right? It keeps that whole like kind of circular thing going where that money goes back into the fucking memory manufacturer's pockets. It's like a collaboration with them. He's having their backs and they're having his back and they're all making money. And the business guys, the data center guys are getting fucked. They don't realize it yet. They think that they're getting some kind of deal. But they feel like they're privileged because it's like the memory guys said they'll sell to us, Bob, but we got to buy it at this price and we've got to buy it by the end of the week. Otherwise they're cutting us off. And they feel like special, like they're opening the door to us. And so they buy it. It's like they feel special. Like maybe they get like a special handwritten, they get one of those little business cards like in American Psycho. Maybe like some of the executive upper management guys at Micron or SK Hynix sends them like their special like handmade business card. And they're like, whoa, I got his business card. He signed it. He signed the card. I'm going to get this fucking put in I'm going to get it framed. I'm going to show my kids, but I can't let anybody touch it, dude. This is so special. That's how they are. And they're hoping that they get invited to one of their like parties on a yacht or something. That's what they're probably hoping. Like if they spend enough money, they might get invited to the party with the special people in a Elysium or whatever place that they go to. Their space station casino. Like in Police Knots. They're hoping that they can go there. I by the way, I played that. I didn't end up finishing it because it was crashing on me, but I have a Saturn Saru cartridge And I got the English translated version, like the fan translated version of Police Knots. And I was playing it like last year. And I was like, dude, this is awesome. There's this one scene where it's kind of like Lethal Weapon, I think is what it's supposed to be like. And you and your partner are like at this, like, I think at a hospital at like this nurse's desk. And one of the nurses, like you can like kind of see her ass and she's like doing some work and you can click on it with your pointer. And he's like, I'd eat anything off that ass. And I fucking laughed so fucking hard at that fucking line, dude. Like both him and his partner were like, oh my God, dude, I would eat anything off of that. And I couldn't believe that line was in that game. This is one of Kojima's games, by the way. It was fucking funny as hell. It was pretty hot. It was a hot scene too. But like in Police Knots, there's this fucking space station, like casino in space that rich people go to. And it's like, you're lucky and privileged if you get to go there. And that's kind of what I think's going on. That's what happens in that upper fucking layer of the world that we're not part of. Do you really want to be though? Think about that. How fucking pathetic that is. You fucking kidding me, dude? That's so sad. That is so fucking sad. You know what I like the idea of a lot more than going to some like rich person's party or casino is having like a little fucking cottage out in the country, having like a flower garden with a little stone bench and like a trellis with flowers on it and sitting outside in this little piece of paradise, breathing fresh air and maybe having like some like friends or something that I can do something with in life, not going to a fucking casino or a rich person's party. You know, imagine having this little, like little house on the prairie kind of thing. You know, there's like fresh air, there's flowers, there's blue sky. You know, you've got food and shelter. I'd be happy as hell just having that. Going to some rich person's party is the last thing I'd ever want to fucking do. You fucking kidding me? Going on a cruise? Dude, I used to work at this company where one of the managers went on a cruise like every fucking 2 to 3 months. It was like his favorite thing to do. He'd go on a cruise ship. And I can't imagine a more fucking repulsive thing to do with my fucking time, dude. That's disgusting. And it's artificial. It's so fucking artificial too. You think about how disgusting that is. Like you're trapped on this like rich person kind of boat out in the middle of the ocean just with a bunch of people. And it's like you're completely like devoid of like all nature. You know, you're on this, it's almost like the kind of setup for a fucking horror movie. It wouldn't take much for that to turn into a nightmare scenario. Even something as simple as like an illness starts spreading and you are fucked on that thing, dude. You're like, what do you do there? You just go to the bar every day and maybe check out chicks by the poolside? You don't need to go to a cruise ship for that. And to do it like every couple of months is ridiculous. Anyway. What was I talking about? We've been playing some games on my channel. I mentioned it's been PC games. And what I think I'm going to do, since I can't do the original hardware that I have, because I have some of that stuff, as I mentioned, like preferably, right? Ideally, I would play my actual Saturn, my actual Super Nintendo, I have a PC Engine Duo R. And I have not a lot, but I have a handful of games for it. And it would be cool to play that stuff. Like, I have no way to do it. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to emulate some stuff on my computer and try to make it look as good as I can in emulation. Like, I want to use some filters so that it looks kind of like an old TV or something. I'm going to try some CRT filters and see how that comes out. And, you know, I think it'll look better than trying to film it with my current technology. It just doesn't look very good. But maybe in some of the games that I have, I can we can talk about the game first and we can take a look at the actual game. Kind of like a compromise. Like at some point I'm going to want to play Lunar the Silver Star for Sega CD. That's one of my favorite games from, when I was like 15. And at some point I'm going to want to play it. And I have that game for the Sega CD, and maybe we take a look at it a little bit here. I'll show it or something and talk about it. And talk about like when I played it. And then we'll play it via emulation. And it's going to look good. I imagine it's going to still look really good, and it won't seem like fake or anything. It'll probably work better. Like that's another problem. My Sega CD doesn't work anymore. So I can't even play that one. Like I have the games, but I don't have the hardware that functions. Lunar Eternal Blue, I've never played that one. And I'd like to play that as well, and I could just emulate it. That's the other cool thing. I don't have to fucking pay for some of that stuff. If I wanted to buy an actual copy of that game now, it's like $500 fucking dollars for Eternal Blue. It's ridiculous. It's way too much fucking money, dude. Those Sega CD games, there's no way those are going to last much longer. They just, there's something about those games. I feel like they're going to start like having disc rot soon. Every time, dude, there's just something about them. Those discs seem so fucking fragile and delicate. That's going to happen soon. A lot of these games are going to start going bad. And then what? Is that still going to be worth $500 or $1,000 for that game? And who's going to buy it? I want to say I recently saw some fucking headline that somebody spent like a couple $1 million, like $2 million or something, for some Game Boy Pokemon games. Who is this sad embarrassment of a human being that spent $2 million on a couple of Game Boy games? Who is that pathetic fuck? Dude. And how old are they? Are they like fucking... Are they in their 30s? Did they grow up playing Pokemon? And in a few years, first of all, they must be rich, right? But like in a few years, are they going to reflect on that decision? At some point, people go through this. They go through a phase. Many people go through a phase where they get this strong sense of nostalgia for their past, from their childhood. And they start buying like the toys that they always wanted or the toys they used to have. And it's usually guys, it's sometimes girls, but I feel like it's more often guys that do this. And they usually do it like in their 30s. And then as they get a little older, like into their mid to late 40s or into their 50s, they start to change again. And maybe they don't tell anybody, but they realize like what a sad, pathetic, loser ass fuck they are, and how stupid that shit was and childish and how meaningless it really is. And then they don't do it anymore. I've gone through those phases where I get into games. I get into buying real, like physical games. I collect games from the past, and then I don't anymore. And sometimes I'll take like 10 years off. And if I had, part of it's having the money to do it. But like there was years where I could have and just didn't feel the desire to collect games anymore. And I mentioned I don't have a huge collection, but it's also not like a tiny collection. I imagine I have some games that some people would find desirable. Not all my stuff's complete in box. About 20 years ago, I bought a loose cart of Chrono Trigger from a local used video game store. And it was like $50. And I'm like, man, that's a lot of money for a loose cart of this. But I really want this game and I don't see it too often. I'm pretty sure a loose cart of that now is a lot more than $50. I heard somebody recently saying that like a completed box copy is like $1,000 for that game. So I'm going to guess that a loose cart is worth something, but Like if, like, how do you even sell something like that legitimately? That's the other problem. And I've thought about this before. You try to sell games now, there's so many scumbags and scammers out there. You try to sell something to somebody, and what's going to happen is they're going to contact you after the sale and say, hey, this is a fake. And I have photos to prove. We opened it up, and here's what it looks like on the inside. It's not authentic. So I'm pissed off, dude. You're trying to rip me off. I want my fucking money back. And you're like, dude, I'm telling you. And you're like, dude, here's the proof, dude. And then like, do you have photos to prove otherwise? And you're like, I guess I don't. And then they're like, all right, I'm sending this back to you. And then you're giving me a refund. Sound fair? And you're like, okay, dude, like, you know, this is how it's going to be, dude. Otherwise you're getting a negative review. And you're like, okay, dude, like I didn't know. Okay. And like they send you back a fake and they keep the real one because they're a piece of shit. And that's what they do. And like, I almost sold my Neo Geo games during the pandemic. And the motherfucker was going to give me like $1,000 for my entire collection. It's not huge, but he had one of my games on his store for thousands of dollars for just one of the games that I had, and mine was complete and his wasn't. And I'm like, this motherfucker. And then I just know that's how these people are. I bet you, I would put money on the fact that after I sold this stuff, he would have done that to me. This one was a fake. And so here's what's going to happen. I'm going to send it back to you, and then you're going to send me my money back. And then they're going to send me the fake. They probably got a whole bunch of fakes that they do this with. And it's like how they make their money. Because these people are all dishonest pieces of shit. And it's like, how do you even actually, like, you have to go through so many fucking layers covering your ass to try to sell something legitimately like that. It's not even worth it. And most of the time, right? Like you're not gonna get what it's worth. And it's such a dice roll to even try to attempt it because there's so many scammers out there. There's so many people out there that like they've spent like their fucking half of their life finding ways to scam people. That's what they do. I mentioned earlier, you look on YouTube, dude. Almost every one of those thumbnails that I see is like a scam thumbnail. It looks like scam shit. It looks like the kind of thing you get in an email in your spam folder. It looks almost exactly like that. The way the icons look, the colors they use, that sort of phrasing and text that they use and the way that it's formatted, it looks almost exactly like the kind of shit emails you get in your spam folder. They're the same kind of people that do that stuff. It's like a form of it. And you'll see some of those disgusting ass, like repulsive fucking thumbnails and like the topics that they're going to tell you about. And it's got like 1 million views. And you think of all of these suckers that clicked on that shit and liked it, and they liked it. And it's really, it's depressing, and it's worrying because there's like a whole generation of people growing up. And I have like an eyelash in my eye here. There's like a whole generation of people, multiple generations now. They're growing up like in that environment where they don't know any better. And maybe some of them even do. And they're just thinking like it's okay to be like that. This is how people should be. This is the right way to act. You should. This is what you do. If you're smart like me, is that you scam people. Is how it seems like a lot of people are being raised, because they're being raised on the internet, dude. It's scary. It's disturbing. It's depressing. You know, like I think about like when I was a kid, I would be left alone every day, all day. But with the TV, I was being raised by like kids' cartoons. It's kind of harmless. I was never afterwards, like at most, I'm like, I want to be like a Ghostbuster, or I want to be like He-Man or something. That's cool. It was never like, oh yeah, dude, I can't wait to start scamming people now. That wasn't what I was raised to believe in and pursue. But I think a lot of people that grow up on the internet have been conditioned into basically being a piece of shit. And it's disturbing. They'd probably fit in really well getting a job somewhere like Microsoft, getting a job in like one of these like executive positions. I don't know, man. It feels really hopeless sometimes. I see but like I was mentioning in the beginning of my discussion here, a lot of the news that we're being fed is the negative news. We're not being fed the positive news. And even when you read the positive news, do you get all excited about it and want to tell everybody about the exciting positive news you're reading? Probably not. You're probably like, yeah, whatever. And then you're looking for the negative news anyway. Yeah, but like, what are people saying about this thing I heard? Let's go look for something negative. I feel like it's like in people's nature. It's sad. It's like part of who we are, I think. And it's preyed upon. You know, if you take a step back, I feel like it's really powerful, and it adds a lot of clarity to your life if you can separate yourself from the noise from time to time. You know, I don't even spend a lot of time in the noise. I can't imagine what it must be like for most people. I feel like I'm kind of an anomaly. I spend very little time engaging in public spaces of any kind. Of any kind, honestly. You know, I've been like that most of my life. But a lot of people, they have this need that they're compelled. They can't live seemingly without constant social interaction, even if it's in a simulated digital space. It becomes like an addiction. Every day they got to check in with their forum where they hang out with a certain group. There's like certain areas that they frequent. Every day they got it, like they're in their little club, their little safe zone with their buddies. But no one there is really their buddy. But they feel like safe. They feel like they've got companionship. And then people have kind of like a like mind, you know, and you have this sort of group think there, and there's people that kind of follow a leader. It's a world I've never had an interest in. I've always been the kind of person that likes to just do my own thing. And I oftentimes like to be left alone. And there's definitely people like that, but a lot less of us, it seems. And so it's really easy when you're in these public spaces and you're constantly being manipulated, especially when you're in a public space like that, very susceptible to it. And if you don't think you are, well, you probably are way more than you realize. And it can be extremely like clarifying, I guess, to separate yourself from that space, at least from time to time, and look at it from more of like a bird's eye view. Imagine yourself as like a different person or a different type of creature, and analyze your life and your situation from that perspective and the things that are going on, happening to you and around you. And you likely have some clarity and start to see things maybe a little more for what they are. It's just like constant. Dude, I feel like I have to disengage with almost everything that's digital. Everything that's digital has become poisoned to some extent. It's poisoned. I started talking about this in the beginning of my video or my podcast here. Like even some of my favorite hobbies. Like I used to read articles, watch videos on like synthesizers and audio equipment, drum machines, compressors, saturators, effects, different things to do with like audio and audio production and music making and tools that I could use to be creative, plugins. I used to spend a lot of time reading about that stuff, watching reviews. There was guys that I like to watch on YouTube. And over time, I have watched all of that stuff become poisoned. And it was probably always, to some extent, a little bit disingenuous. But over the years, it has become like unwatchable. When I see it now, dude, it is like, it's repulsive to me. And I have basically completely disengaged with all of it. Everybody, I mentioned this, I think in my last podcast. People copy each other. It's human nature, right? Like we're all of us, every one of us is a dumbass fucking ape. We all are. We're all so fucking primitive and stupid. We're all a bunch of dumb, dirty animals. Whether you realize it or not, dude. Do you think there was this episode of Star Trek where they met this like advanced alien race, and that alien race was like repulsed by people. Like, you people are so disgusting. You all stink. You're so primitive and you stink. I can't remember exactly how but that was basically the gist of it. Like, they were repulsed by people. They were just like these dirty, disgusting, dumb animals that they had to engage with. And like, it's really what we're like. And I lost my train of thought. but people copy each other is what I was getting at. And you see this like trend happen. Like somebody will do something and then everybody starts copying it. You think about when you were like a kid in school and a word started being used. You probably don't even remember when you started hearing it. I use words that I grew up using and hearing. Like, that's cool. That's awesome. Oh, that's sick. But those aren't the words people use anymore. Before that, my parents or my grandparents or my great-grandparents used completely different words that caught on with them when they were young. And when they started hearing those words when they were young, their parents were probably like, don't fucking say that. Shut the fuck up. And like, you sound stupid saying that. What the fuck does that even mean? Right? Like every generation, somebody somewhere starts using some kind of word, or they start dressing a certain way, and then somebody copies them, and then somebody copies them. And then all of a sudden it turns into a trend and everybody's copying each other. And it's fucking repulsive. It's really stupid. Guys wearing their jeans. I remember when I was in like junior high and I started, it wasn't happening in elementary school, but all of a sudden in junior high, it started to become popular. It's like it was the coolest kids. It was only the coolest kids. It was the guys would wear their jeans down almost around their knees. It was almost down to the knees. I don't even know how the fuck they walked. I don't know how they kept their pants from completely falling off. There was this one kid in my class. His pants were literally around his knees. He walked like he was wearing like a fucking tight dress on, like a kimono or something. Is that what it's called? Those tight dress kind of things that are really like hug your knees. Because he'd have to cinch his belt up around his knees so they didn't completely fall on the floor. And I'm like, what the fuck? How the fuck is he walking? It was like, how low can I get him? And it was like the trend, and he probably either like knew some older kids, it was like, maybe he had like an older brother that had some friends that were like in their like late teens or in their early 20s. and they were doing some shit like that and he was trying to pretend he was all grown up, or he saw it on TV. It was one or the other, dude. Either way, he was trying to pretend he was a big boy. Oh, 12 years old, living with his mommy and daddy. Mommy still making him dinner every day and riding a school bus to school like a big boy, like a badass with his pants around his knees. And you saw these fucking dumb, stupid fucks doing that shit. People still do that. You think about that. Like, you gotta fucking, like, say you got a life emergency. You gotta run, dude. You gotta save your ass or save somebody else's life. But I can't. I tripped and fell because I'm trying to look cool with my pants around my knees. You dumb fuck. The fuck? Dude, seriously. Imagine if you were like on like some like fucking join the military. Let me know how long that's gonna last you. They're gonna let you do that in battle? I gotta look cool. Hold on, let me pull my pants down. I want to see you do it, bitch. I want to be there. I want to fucking take care of it. The problem, I personally, I fucking can't believe what people do to try to be accepted or feel like they're cool. And I use these dumb fucking words. Like, it's cool. I feel stupid when I say it, but it's like something that caught on. I got like manipulated and it became like programmed into me at a young age. And every fucking person in every generation goes through this thing where like they get programming at a young age and it sticks. And for most people, it sticks for their whole life and they're programmed. They don't even fucking know it. They don't even fucking know it. And like they have this feeling like they're fucking right about something. And they don't even like have that self-reflection first to just kind of analyze that situation by taking a few steps back, looking at themselves like they're a different person. No one wants to do that. Like what I'm doing when I talk it into this microphone and seeing myself in a fucking camera. Do you know how long it took to not want to fucking throw the fuck up from that? Try it if you've never done it. Let me know how you fucking feel. Most people, I think, feel pretty confident about themselves until maybe they see themselves in a recording or hear themselves in a recording. And I don't look like that. I don't sound like that. Yeah, you do. Didn't you know? I mentioned this in a different video, I think. It's like, didn't you know? We've all been laughing at you because you're such a stupid fuck. You're such an embarrassment. You're the only one that doesn't know. It's what it kind of feels like when you see yourself from another perspective all of a sudden. All you need to do is record yourself and watch it back. And it's like, what the fuck? I don't sound like that. I don't look like that. This camera I have like mounted up, it's above my monitor and it looks down at me from an angle. And then there's a little bit of lens distortion from the lens. And it makes my face look just enough different than when I see it in the mirror, like in my bathroom, that I'm like, I don't look like that. That's not what I look like. And sometimes cause I watch the stuff back to make sure like that it came out okay. And then also to make sure it's like okay to publish. And sometimes when I see that stuff, I'm like, dude, I do not look like that. I don't look like, who is that? Who is that? And sometimes I see myself and I'm like, who the fuck? Who is that? Like, it looks like somebody that I know, but it's not me. Who the fuck am I looking? Who the fuck am I trying to think of that looks like somebody else, but I feel like I know who it is? What the hell is going on? It's the weirdest fucking thing. And I start to wonder, like, am I really wondering, like, am I reminding myself of somebody I saw somewhere in a movie or publicly somewhere? Or is it like literally some version of myself I've repressed, or it's like this, I've mentioned this thing before where I feel like everybody has like a form of consciousness that they're not aware of. You have this version of yourself that you feel fully aware of. The version that like who I am right now while I'm talking to this camera and this microphone like a dipshit about who I don't even know what am I talking about anymore. And I feel like that's me. I'm aware of this. I'm coming up with these words as I say them, and I'm not doing a very good job of doing it. But there's this other person that's like behind the scenes that's just kind of like trapped there. And they're like watching it all happen. They're like tied up. They're like chained up. Like in a fucking prison or something. And they're like subjected to it. And they're watching it all happen. And it's like they're being tortured. And they're like, stop it. And like, let me have a turn. Let me have. And every once in a while, like when you're not paying attention, you're doing something else. They're like, oh, here, let me do that for you. Let me fix your hair for you. Let me get that drink for you. And then you're like, oh, thanks. And then you're like, wait a minute, did I just drink? Did I just take a drink? I can't remember. Or like, why am I holding this thing all of a sudden? I don't remember picking this up. There's like, there's this other person behind the scenes. And every once in a while, they can kind of interact. And when you go on autopilot, you're busy trying to multitask. You're not really multitasking. The other person starts to try to take over, but you never give them a chance to get good at it. So they're really bad at doing it. They never are like fully there doing it. So like, it's like they're trying to do it from like another dimension through the dream world. And it's not working very well. I'm trying. And they're like, you get angry with them all the time and you're punishing them and yelling at them. And they're like this tortured, abused person. And I feel like everybody has that inside of them, but they don't know it. They're not aware of it because that person isn't able to just like have a conversation with you. Not most of the time. Maybe some people that have a so-called split personality, maybe that's what's going on. I've mentioned before, like I was interested in listening to some of these discussions from people like, what the hell is his name? Oh, I can't think of his name on the spot now. It'll come to me later. But there was these like split brain experiments that were done years ago. And they discovered in these experiments that people literally had like two different conscious beings inside of them. Like the two hemispheres of the brain were like two different fucking people. But one of them is that version that you feel like is you and you're fully conscious of all the time. And the other version, it's there. It has likes and dislikes. It's conscious, but it's not able to like outwardly communicate with the environment. It's kind of like trapped in a deeper layer, essentially. But they were able to perceive it through a clever experimentation. And I feel like, without being an expert on this subject, I feel like everybody has that kind of thing within them. They have like different conscious selves, different people, essentially. But then I even have like beliefs, I guess you could say, because like I don't have facts, like factual data, just to sort of a gut feeling, you could say, based on a gut feeling. And then also like things that I've picked up over my life from various, things in the environment, things you hear, things you read, and you kind of put it together and form your own worldview. That's what I do. I like to form my own worldview that I create by taking things from different categories that make sense to me. Because I don't think there's one necessarily like right or wrong. I don't think anybody knows everything. Nobody has all the answers. There's so many people out there that have different ideas. And some of them feel very, very sure of themselves. But if you look into it and you try to learn from all these different sources, that you feel they all have like wildly different ideas about like what's true and what isn't. It's like, well, who's right? Nobody, apparently. but some of them really think they know. And so I like to take things that they feel like I like that one. That one makes sense to me. And then I can change it anytime I want. If I'm like, you know what? I think I was wrong about that one. And I can do that. And I like to create my own worldview. And I feel like not only do we have, and we've gone off topic from game thoughts. We do that here. We go into thoughts. It starts with game thoughts, and then it just goes into thoughts. But I like there's like the different conscious selves that I mentioned. But I also have this feeling that you inherit some form of consciousness, some form of like conscious state or presence from every ancestor that you're made of. So people from like your father's side and people from your mother's side. Parents, grandparents, great grandparents, all the way back. You know, you have like traits. And the older you get, you discover this. Anybody that's of a certain age knows this. They discover this about themselves as they get older. It's generally like once they get into their 30s and then into their 40s, I think they start to really see it. And for some people, it comes a little earlier, and other people, they start to realize it later. But they start to really realize it the older they get, that they are very similar to their parents. Like they can notice that the most. But also it's like, well, you didn't really know your great grandparents. So you can't really compare very well, can you? Like your grandparents, you can most people knew their grandparents and can remember parts of them well enough to think, yeah, you know what? I think I was kind of like my grandfather or my grandmother. There was aspects about them that feel strong in me as well. But man, I really remind me of my fucking parents. Jesus. Wow. What the fuck? It's like shockingly so. And I feel like that goes back. You know, maybe it's weaker the farther you go back, but I feel like there's almost like a form of consciousness that's passed on with each iteration. You know, when whatever happens, when life is created and when two people come together to reproduce, I have this feeling like not only is there this like genetic traits are passed on, but there is potentially even some sort of conscious state is manifested. Like the two beings are able to also pass on some form of their own conscious state so that it still exists. It still exists. You know, your parents, when they pass away and when your grandparents pass away, as it inevitably happens to everyone, that they're not completely gone because part of them is still in you. Part of them was able to still exist in you. And I feel like that actually happens. It's just, you know, it's different strengths of it. And maybe you had an ancestor a couple hundred years ago and their will was really strong or something. And you are like way more like them than you realize. You got some kind of trait from them that like your parents didn't have, your great grandparents didn't have. But there was this ancestor ways back that was like, you know, like they had an interest in something. Maybe they really liked flowers or they really liked music or something. And you have that and you don't realize that's why you're so interested in it, is because that person's like still present. They're still partially there. They were able to still exist in some capacity. You know, there's so much we don't know about reality in general, dude. Like in general, seriously, you start watching some of these like intellectuals that have studied the mind their whole lives. And like they have like advanced degrees. They've studied it their whole lives. They've worked in the field professionally. and they're continuously having these conversations with their peers or whatever. They're continuing like having these debates and these philosophical conversations about what is and what isn't and what could be, because they don't, nobody fucking knows. You get all this talk about science having all the fucking answers, and like, dude, no, they don't. No, they do not. They have data. They have numbers, just like your boss has at work. How much does he fucking know again? Did we want to talk about that again? How much does he know about what actually happens in the real world on a daily basis, just in the workplace? And that's his job. He studied for his whole fucking life. He knows because he's seen the data. It's a lot like that. Keep in mind. Scientists are just people that have studied, they've followed a very strict set of rules that they were indoctrinated into believing in, that is possibly not even real or true. And fundamentally, to start with, from the very inception of everything that we understand about the world, could be wrong. But they have to believe that it's true for the magic to work. And then they follow that strict set of rules religiously. They don't stray from it. And they only believe in the data. They only believe in the very specific pieces of data that they're reading from their fucking tests. And look at the crazy ass fucking shit that some of these motherfuckers say. You just listen to some of the dumbass shit out of these fucks' mouth about like string theory and multiple dimensions. The fucking bullshit they have to make up to try to make their weird ass systems and rules make sense, because it doesn't make sense. Their belief system on how the world works and how reality works and what is real and where, like the universe, the Big Bang, the microwave background, like all of that stuff, like where it came from, the beginning of it, the end of it, trying to understand and make sense of that stuff. I can't explain it to you like somebody that studied it their whole life. But also those people also don't fucking know. They have no fucking idea. And then when they try to explain it, when they're like, well, they come up with these weird theories so that it makes sense. Like all these weird string theory ideas and multiple dimension ideas. I can't speak. They all have these wild ass, the most nonsensical, ridiculous sci-fi explanations to try to make sense, because they're fundamentally what they're trying to believe in doesn't make sense. And for it to make sense, this weird magic has to happen. It's always what it comes down to. It always comes down to like, well, magic has to exist, but not real magic. That's stupid. And then they tell you about the most magical, ridiculous shit you've ever heard in your life. And you're like, dude, is this real? What are you talking about? I think I might have taken this video down. I talked about this motherfucker. He was the CTO, like Chief Technology Officer, like Doofy. He was the CTO of one of these tech companies that was looking for investment for quantum computers. Back in the day, this was probably like well over a decade ago. And his company was looking for investment. They needed to convince the people with money that this shit was real and it was going to change the world. And by the way, like, when was the last time that quantum computers were even talked about? All you're hearing now is like about data centers and NVIDIA and about Micron and Samsung and SK Hynix. No one seems to be talking about the quantum computers so much anymore. But those things were it was like in 1 second, they could do what the traditional computer would take the life of the universe times 1,000 to do. And by the way, it'd be every single computer on the planet. The life of the universe times 1,000. This computer, our computer, will be able to do in 1 second. Immediately, 1 second. And you're, people are like, governments are handing them money. Here's $100 billion. Here's $20 trillion. Make it happen. Make us that fucking system so that we can control the world. And the CTO guy, dude, this is the top guy at the company behind the technology, was telling the investors, I saw this shit, and like a stage performance is what it might as well have been. He said that he said what's really happening with our quantum computers. He's like, this is what really happens. We are tearing a hole into reality, and we are reaching our hands into infinite dimensions that are normally inaccessible to us. And we are pulling out information from infinite realities into our own dimension. It's basically like Doom 3. They're creating this like fucking Doom portal to extract resources from other dimensions. That's what he was telling people we're doing with his computer. That's the kind of fantasy ass, magical bullshit thinking that goes on. Do you think he really believed that? And like, both scenarios are insane to imagine. On the one hand, him lying that straight faced is fucked up about something like that. On the other hand, if he really believes it, that's also really fucked up. I believed it when I heard him say it, because I'm like, this guy obviously is way smarter than me. Who am I? I'm not the CTO. I'm not doofy. But this guy, like maybe there's some people out there like, no, that makes sense. It's real. I played Steins Gate. Obviously, I know that shit's real now. I played a visual novel. Grow the fuck up, dude. The fuck? This fake. It's cool when it's like a sci-fi story. It's cool like when you're younger and you're 20, you're in your 20s and you're dumb and you're easily manipulated and you're not that smart. So if it sounds kind of smart, if it sounds kind of realistic, like Steins Gate was cool when I played it. I feel like if I played it again now, I'd be like, this is dumb. Shut up. But I liked it when I played it. I thought it was cool. I got into visual novels because of that fucking visual novel. This story was neat. It was pretty cool. It was also stupid and unrealistic. And, like the idea behind those science adventure visual novels has always been like, we want to have like enough science in the story that it seems like it could be real, but it's also got enough fantasy in it that it can't be. Like in the story of Steins Gate, they made a time traveling device out of a microwave and a cell phone. That's basically it. But there was more to it than that. And the more you learn about the story, the dumber it sounds, actually. But I liked it when I played it. I don't know, man. I feel like if I actually did it again, I'd be like, oh, I can't. This is dumb. But because I ended up buying the anime. I liked it so much. And I watched the anime and I remember thinking like, dude, this is so good. And then I tried to watch it again, like maybe like 2 years ago. And I'm like, I liked this. This is embarrassing. What? I don't know, man. You go through different phases in your life and sometimes you change. Like I mentioned earlier, I collected games for a while and then I got out of it. And I like the idea of being able to just play something on my computer. It's frustrating getting all the shit out to hook it all up. When I was doing that a few months ago and trying to film it, it was kind of fucking miserable. There was shit all over my fucking floor. I couldn't even walk in my bedroom. There was so many fucking cables everywhere. And I had to have like converters and boxes and cables in the consoles and the controllers and the games wouldn't work half the time and I have to clean them. The PS2, I had to flip it upside down to get it to read CDs. It was such a pain in the fucking ass to just play a fucking game. And then dealing with the memory cards. It's like, oh my God, dude, games took this long to save? What the fuck? I don't remember it taking this long to save a fucking game or to load it or to go into the menu. What the fuck? Or like load times in between areas and shit. Like, especially on some of the CD based games. You forget about that. You know, you got those rose tinted glasses. I don't like terms like that. This dumb fucking term. I don't like saying stupid shit like that, like repeating the dumb shit people say. I'm going to come up with my own terms from now on, dude. Shit smeared glasses is more like it. Gotta clean my fucking glasses. I got shit on them. I got shit in my ears too. It's time to clean it. There's probably people out there who'd be like, well, if you don't want your game collection, just give them to me. I'll take them. Fuck you. I fucking want them. I'll probably, if I ever have money, you know, I'd probably get some stuff again. I have no desire to go in hardcore. There's a handful of games that I'd like to get when I have money. Like some of those early NES games I used to have that I don't have anymore. I don't have an NES. I wouldn't mind having a handful of NES games that have boxes and manuals. They don't need to be complete or in mint condition, but I'd like to have them with a box and a manual that's in okay to good condition. You know, I'd love to have Super Mario Brothers 1, 2, and 3 and Mega Man 1, because that's the one I used to rent as a child. And I thought it was so cool. And I never owned it. And it'd be cool to have that one. Castlevania 2. I had Simon's Quest. That was the Castlevania game I had as a kid. And I liked the game. It was cool. I'd love to have it in my collection. You know, it would be stuff like that. But when I see some of these collectors and I see some of their YouTube content, I don't really watch it anymore. I'll be honest. I see the thumbnail and I'm like, no, dude, no. What the fuck? What the fuck is this? It's like a desk with like 40 things on it. My pickups this week. And it's like, it looks like a pile of shit on your desk. I don't want to watch that. The fuck's wrong with you, dude? You got a problem. That's a pile of shit on your desk, dude. It's not even like you got to, like for me, a pickup would be like, hey, I found Lunar Eternal Blue for Sega CD, complete in box. This is my pickup for the week or the month or whatever. I'm really happy I found this. But when I see these fucking YouTube collector guys, it's like pickups for the week. And it is a desk of shit. It's like fucking bobblehead things, whatever the fuck those things are, plushies, like fucking comic books, cheap ass toys that look like they came from Temu, like garbage tier stuff. It's embarrassing. It's the kind of shit that you should be ashamed to even look at. And it's like they're like showing it off on their fucking video, and like their thumbnail is just like this sea of shit. And it's like, it's not even cool stuff. And it's like a lot of these guys, they probably already have the cool stuff. It's like, well, then maybe you need to stop now, dude. You need to take a step. Maybe find a different hobby. You know, if you like collecting stuff and you just can't help it, like, just try to collect cool stuff, dude. Right? Choose another hobby and now collect some cool stuff for that hobby. There's some cool shit out there, I'll tell you. I was starting to get into like CD players and like audio equipment for listening to music, that kind of stuff, like hi-fi stuff. A few years back, like during the pandemic, I got interested in it, but I didn't really get much of it. But I started looking at all, because think about all the stuff that we make as people, and then it gets thrown away or it gets replaced for the new version. You know, just look at something that came out. Like if you look at Marantz makes like some decent, I would consider them to be fairly high quality hi-fi audio equipment, but they're not the territory that some of that shit goes, where it's like $20,000-$30,000 for like a fucking amplifier or something dumb. But they make nice stuff that goes up to, you know, anywhere from like $800 to $900 to like a couple thousand, maybe up to like $5,000. I don't know. they make nice stuff, I think. But you think about it, they come out with some kind of new product like every fucking year. And when you look up a company like that and you look up the desirable products, maybe you want to get into it, you're going to see like the newest shit that got reviewed like in 2026 or 2025. And then you're going to see the vintage stuff from like the 80s or 90s that's really expensive and hard to find. But in between that is like 40 years of shit they've been making that no one seems to be talking about. You know? What about the CD player that they made fucking 5 years ago? You could probably find that for a way better price. And no one wants that one, apparently. It's like you look at all of that shit, like that's another hobby you could get into. That's what I'm saying. Like there's so many different categories that are kind of adjacent to something like games. That's cool. It would be cool still. And it's no longer going to look like this weird ass. It gets to this point, dude. Like imagine like the fucking plumber has to come over and he sees your fucking game collection that's also a bunch of kids' toys and you're playing like Nintendo music on your stereo. And he's going to be like sweating and nervous. He's like, he's in some kind of like nightmare clown's house, some weirdo's house, you know, just fucking kids' toys everywhere. This guy looks kind of weird and creepy. He's listening to little kids' music. Like, I need to get the fuck out of here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, choose another hobby once you've gone too far with it. Because once you get all the cool games, the only thing left is the shit. And you don't want that stuff. Come on. Seriously. The fuck? I see some of these guys' collections when they start buying all the shit. And it goes to a bad place. It goes into a bad place. And I feel like you have like two options in my mind. You either completely stop or you find a different hobby and make sure you just keep collecting cool stuff. Dude, what the fuck? You know? You could get into like I said, that hi-fi like stereo equipment stuff. You can get vintage stuff that's not crazy expensive. And there's so many cool fucking CD players, cassette players, Laserdisc players, DVD players, Blu-ray players, and then the speakers and the amplifiers and all that shit, dude. And there's so many different models and variants. And then you could get into like the handheld stuff, like Walkmans, handheld CD players, handheld cassette players, and then looking for like cool music to listen to. And suddenly you have this whole new kick-ass physical media category that's kind of adjacent and related. And you start getting into that. If you have this just need to collect and you like cool physical media. And you get done doing that. And, you know, you could do it with movies. You could do it with, like, get into vinyl. A lot of people get into that because it looks cool. I think that's one of the main reasons. It looks cool. It's like large pieces of art that look kind of cool. I'll admit, it looks pretty cool. It's actually not that amazing. It really isn't, dude. Yeah, you can convince yourself of anything. It's really easy to fool the human brain. Really easy. Trust me. There's a reason why you're not a billionaire and someone else is. It's because you're really easy to fucking manipulate and your mind is easy to control. Otherwise, you would be the one in control and you wouldn't be the peasant that's buying a bunch of shit off Amazon or Temu. The fuck? You wouldn't have the fucking dumb toy collection. You'd be a billionaire driving a Lamborghini or something. Just like take a step back and gain a little perspective. I don't have the desire to be a billionaire. I feel like that kind of lifestyle would be poisonous and it would make life feel like unfulfilling and empty. You know, you think about it. If you had like billions of dollars, what would you even do with it? You'd buy shit at first, right? You'd buy like the mansion You'd buy like this amazing car you wanted, the amazing truck, a couple of them. You'd get into a hobby like that, maybe for years. I'm going to get every new model that comes out. I'm going to get the sickest paint job. I'm going to get the coolest cars. I'm going to buy the coolest clothes. Maybe you'd get into that. Maybe it would last a couple of years. And then it would slowly start to fade away. It wouldn't feel special anymore. It'd start to feel empty and like, what am I even doing with my life? And you'd be getting older and realizing that you're going to die soon. And all you did was buy some dumbass fucking cars. The fuck is that? You bought like a fucking house that's too big to live in? That no one gives a shit. No one likes you because you're the billionaire. No one even likes you. You don't have friends anymore. The friends you do have are fake because they want to try to get some of your money. And you start to realize that. And then you start to distrust people even more. And you start to hate people and resent them. They only like me because I have money. And then maybe you start shutting them out. And you start to live as a recluse in your mansion. And you no longer care about the car. No one cares about you driving your car. No one thinks you're cool. When people see you driving that like $1 million car, they're not like, this a cool guy. They're like, fuck him. I hope someone keys that fucking car. I hope someone steals it from him. I want to steal it from him. That's what they're going to think. What's that guy doing here? He doesn't belong here. Like, cause this car's going to stand out. No one drives one of those. And like you're going to be like an outcast. No one's going to like you. So then the only people left for you to turn to are going to be other rich people, but you're not going to be rich enough for them to like you enough to let them in your circle or into their circle. So then you're going to be trying to suck their dick all the fucking time to be in their circle because no one else wants you. And like, that's going to be the reality that you live in. And you're going to be like miserable and depressed. Everyone's going to fucking hate you. And you're probably going to be a piece of shit. And like, what are you going to have? You know, like on the one hand, it's like, yeah, it'd be cool if I had the money to have a nice, like all I would want. I don't want to be a billionaire. I just want to have a nice house to live in. That's not too big, that's comfortable, and that's designed in a way that I like. Like it'd be cool to maybe design it or have a few, like some input into its design. That'd be cool, but I don't want it too big. And then like, I want to have a nice yard with a garden. I want to have some flowers. I want it to be, you know, I don't want to go to my backyard and I'm seeing the neighbor's backyard and they're sitting there looking at me. I want to have some privacy. Like, I don't want the world, but you know, I also don't want to live in the slums. But like that idea of being a billionaire, dude, it's not desirable if you really start to think about that kind of lifestyle. And then the things that you would start being interested in, they're so fucking meaningless and empty and unsatisfying and pointless. The things you would be doing with your time and pursuing is so fucking empty, hollow, and meaningless. And then also thinking about like how you're basically like a parasite sucking up the resources from the world. And all of these other people are suffering and going without. And like, you could actually change that, but you're not, because you're a piece of shit. You're going to keep it all from yourself and you don't need it. Nobody needs that kind of wealth and resource. Nobody. People need enough money to live. And it would be nice to have a little more than that so that you could feel comfortable. And then like, that's where it should end. You shouldn't need more than that. How do you change that? You know, how does that change? And who makes the decision? This is where AI comes into place. Maybe we hand everything over to AI. You make all the decisions now because we're obviously incapable of doing it. And maybe, right? Maybe that sounds like a nightmare scenario, or maybe it sounds like the right idea. These tech people created AI to try to find ways to scam us and manipulate us and steal from us even more aggressively, and to try and create a system that we will rely on. It's not to make like us. It's not to make people like my age rely on it. It's to make like our kids and our kids' kids rely on it. That they have like they think into the future. They think 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years into the future. They're not thinking about right now. They're thinking about the future. Whereas you're thinking about right now, that thing you want right now. They're thinking about the long term. We're going to get their kids and their kids' kids and their grandkids. And then we've got them. And then we change the world. But maybe instead what happens is somebody like gives full control over to some kind of massive AI system that stops this shit from happening. I don't know how that happens, right? Like, I feel like there always has to be some kind of like human interaction with these systems. It's not just some sentient fucking creature. It's just a computer system, but that has like access to a lot of data, and it can process a lot of data like really quickly and in a way that some people might perceive as intelligence. I don't think it is. I will occasionally, like I mentioned earlier, if I'm trying to get an answer quickly on something and I don't want to read a whole book, I'm like, yeah, but can I do this thing with this tool I have or not? And it'll tell me. Sometimes, dude, sometimes it's wrong. Really wrong. I was trying to figure out how to do something with one of my pieces of gear in here. And I'm like, I don't know how to fucking do this, dude. I don't know. I'm trying to be creative right now. I'm trying to get in this like flow state and just make something. I don't want this barrier in my fucking way. And I'm not going to stop what I'm doing now and spend like 4 fucking hours reading through a bunch of documents, because then I'm going to be done. Then I'm done. Forget it. So I am like, how do I do this? And it says it, right? It was like Google's Gemini. It tells me, it basically just is able to take the manual and give me an answer from it in like a second, saving me hours that I'm never going to put in. I just don't do that, dude. So it tells me like right away, and I'm like, okay. And then I try it. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's not in the menu. That's not in my menu. And I'm like, that's not in the menu. And it's like, oh, my apologies. Thank you for that correction. You're right. It's not. I don't know what's wrong with me today. I'm having one of those moments. That's what it said to me. It's like the dumbest shit, dude. It's wrong often because it's pulling from various sources on the internet and compiling it, but it doesn't know. It's not intelligent, but on the other hand, it can be used to get to an answer more quickly. It can be used to get to an answer more quickly. If you're trying to do something, you need like least resistance to the goal, right? What like for me personally, if I'm in like a creative mindset, it is not, what's the word? Like it is not compatible with like a scientific mindset. I do not think like that. And it's this barrier that I've always had. But if I can get past that, like what I've always needed is for somebody to just show me something like with their hands. Hey, how did you do this though? Really? Like I need to see it. And they're like, oh, I do this. And it's like, oh, well, that's not what it seemed like. And when I read it, the symbology doesn't translate to me. It's a bunch of fucking symbols. And oftentimes it doesn't translate to me with reality. And so I need to see somebody do something. And I don't have anybody to show me anything ever. It's always been a problem. It's really helpful if you have like that friend, like that nerd friend. He's like the smart guy. He's the science guy. And you can be like, hey, dude, how do you do this thing? And like, oh, I'll tell you. I'll come over in a weekend. We'll have a couple beers. I'll show you. And having somebody like that is really helpful. But if you don't have that, dude, it sucks. And so I have found occasionally, if I'm like stumped with something and I'm not like super technical, I have found use cases where using something like Google's Gemini that's built into their search engine can actually help me sometimes save a lot of fucking time, a lot of wasted time. I mentioned earlier, I wanted to know like what was updated in a patch for a game that I was considering playing. And I spent like 20 minutes on their fucking official website. And I'm like, where the fuck is this? And I like every single link I clicked, I'm reading all this shit, just nowhere. And then just typing it in like 1 second, I immediately, it was like, okay, now I see exactly why the fuck was that hidden from me? You know what I mean? Like having, like you think about it, like the search engine itself, that also is essentially, it's like a more primitive version of that same tool, right? It's like data on servers from around the world, distributed all around the world, cables going across the fucking ocean and across the continents and on different servers all over the fucking planet. And you're on the search engine typing something in and it's going to like a data center and it's like, it's helping you find that thing more quickly so that you're not like going through microfiches or whatever those fucking things are called, like in the library for like fucking a whole weekend, like James Bond or something. It's like a more refined, robust version of that is all I see it as and all I use it as. Now I know that there's a lot of people out there that use AI assisted tools to do so many different things. I don't currently have any use case for that stuff. I guess, you know, there's people that use it for art. I don't like that stuff, you know, but for some people, maybe they feel good about it. They're like, wow, that looks really cool. And then it tricks them into feeling like they made it. I made that. It's like, no, you didn't. But whatever, dude. Pay a subscription to believe you made it. People use that stuff maybe to make music. I made that. It's like, no, you didn't. You absolutely did not. But you can pay a subscription to the company to believe you did. And then you're always going to have to fucking use that to make anything. You could warp and twist your perspective though on anything to believe in something or not believe in something at the end of the day. You know, like I like to use electronic instruments. I'm not good at playing traditional instruments. I didn't get taught as a child. I wasn't raised since infancy to play the piano and take music lessons. So I don't have that skill set. And for people that do have it, right? It's like they have an advantage over me. You don't just pick that up in your mid 40s. You don't just one day you're suddenly a master musician. That's not how it works. It's like, oh, you know what? I'm going to go be a MotoGP racer now. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You have to do that since basically infancy to even have a chance. And even then, probably ain't going to happen. But that's the only way you're going to have a chance is you start when you're a little tiny, like fucking 2 or 3 years old and your parents put you into it. You know, you look at people that are really good at doing like gymnastics and like body contortion. You ain't in like your 50s or 60s just going to go just do that one day. I think I'm going to do that now. That's not how it works. You have to start doing that when you're a little kid and then grow up with your body doing that regularly to be able to do that your whole life. You could maybe become a little more flexible at an older age, but you ain't going to be fucking flipping your body inside out and living to tell the tale. You ain't. You're gonna be in the hospital within an hour and permanently fucking ruined is what's gonna happen. So I like using electronic instruments because I can do things that I just couldn't do otherwise. So like I'm relying on a piece of technology now. I like synthesizers. I like modular synthesis. I like that way of creating sounds and interacting with something because it's more hands-on and I'm not in a bunch of menus. I'm plugging in cables, I'm turning knobs, and I'm flipping switches. And oftentimes it's experimental. I don't really know exactly what the outcome is going to be. Sometimes I have an idea or I'm trying to do it and I can't get it to work. But I like the experiment part. I like the unknown. I like how I go into it not entirely sure what kind, I'm going to be surprised oftentimes. And sometimes I'm pleasantly surprised and I like that. I don't want to take that away. I don't want to take away the mystery completely and feel like I've mastered this now. I know exactly how everything is going to play out. Then it would ruin it for me. I wouldn't even want to do it anymore. It would no longer be something I would enjoy doing. It would no longer feel like I was being creative. I like going in with that thing and plugging in those fucking cables and turning knobs. And when I start to default to something I'm familiar with, I know how to set up this kick and snare sound. And then I'm creating the same thing every time, all of a sudden. And it's like, this is boring now. This isn't fun. This isn't interesting anymore. So I like going in and doing it with tools that I'm not super familiar with, and I get interesting results, and there's a mystery behind it. But I rely on those tools, right? At the end of the day, I have to rely on those. If I didn't have those tools, I wouldn't be able to make those sounds. If I was really good at playing the guitar, I would be relying on the guitar. Take the guitar away from me and I can't do anything anymore. If I was a famous guitarist and everyone knew me as this famous guitarist, play us the guitar. And then one day my hands got cut off or the guitar was just taken away. I couldn't have it. Now I'm nobody. I can't do anything now. The tool I rely on is gone. Right? You could say this about anything. So I look at tools like AI as being kind of like a double-edged sword. It could be a useful tool in many applications, and it can also be abused. And I can see it as it's a useful tool, like having the internet, having a search engine can be a useful tool to get you closer to an answer versus having to go. You have to have a way to get there and then go to a library and then see if they have the kind of book that you're looking for. And maybe you won't even find it. Or maybe the book you find that you spend like the next fucking 2 weeks reading doesn't give you the information that you're hoping to find. And then you spend how many months or years of your life trying to find something that in modern days, you could go on the internet and learn in 1 fucking minute or 1 hour, right? It could be a useful transformative tool to help people get closer to an answer, to remove a barrier so that they can move forwards with whatever it is they're trying to do. That's how I see technology like that. And to help solve problems that traditionally would just take an unreasonable amount of time, following, using an abacus and writing everything on fucking paper. You ever work for one of these older fucking people that don't know how to use a computer? Because I have. Recently. You ever work for one of these kind of fucking managers? They don't know how to use a fucking computer in the fucking 2020s. And they want everything written on fucking paper like it's the fucking 1200s. We're all wearing fucking we're riding horses and shit. Because I've worked for people like that recently, and want everything on fucking paper, with pencil or pen. Everything needs to be on paper. And it's like, dude, this is a waste of time. What are we doing? And right, like, sometimes you have to, like, there is a point where it makes sense to, like, modernize, and to some extent, but everybody has, like, that freedom and that right to draw the line wherever they feel like it makes sense for them to draw the line in anything. You know, I was mentioning earlier, having your own, and we're just talking and rambling on now about stuff, but like having your own worldview, I think that's desirable and important. I think everybody should be able to do that, to create their own worldview and then share worldviews. And then people can influence each other with different ideas. Oh, I never thought of it like that. That's like an idealized way to think, I think. I think. Rather than, this is what's real, this is what we all believe, and if you don't believe it, then you must be destroyed. You know? I like that idea that, like, everyone can have their own way of thinking and believing and create their own worldviews. And when you share or communicate these things to each other, it might influence some people into saying, like, oh, you know, I never thought of it like that. And then their worldview changes a little bit. It's reconfigured. I think it's important to have that sort of flexibility and to have that option, you know, almost like a more complicated Rubik's Cube that's always shifting and moving. Maybe it's not a cube. Maybe it's more like a fluidic object or something. That's how I've, like, changed myself over the years. Cause I used to be very, like, rigid in my belief system and in my way of living and experiencing the world. I kind of stuck to my ways, and I like refused to take in, like, other people's ideas into account, or like to compromise in a way, you know, like some, like, because of my father and my grandfather, and like the men in my family were always like that, you know, like very stuck in their ways, refused to fucking compromise or see the other side, the other person's point of view for any fucking reason. Absolutely fucking not. Like, it's like, that's how I was raised, you know? But like, over the years, I've tried to break out of that way of thinking and be more open to having different points of view, and having that freedom, that flexibility to change and reconfigure is important. You need to have that. I feel like to be a successful human being, a successful animal, to constantly be able to evolve and change with the world, you have to have that ability to be flexible and change, sometimes in real time, and adapt to some extent. But like I said, everybody has a different line in the sand that they draw, and maybe sometimes you move it around. That's too close. I'm putting a line there. And it's like, okay, maybe I'll move it. I'll put it over here now. And then maybe you're like, yeah, that was too close. You know what? The line's going back the fuck over here now. Now there's a wall. You know what? The line's gone, bitch. I put a wall up, motherfucker. I'm done with your ass. You can do that. That's the other thing. Like, it's not about just like accepting shit. Sometimes you're just like, okay, you know what? Fuck this. Yeah. Change my mind. That's also like important to be able to do that, to have that flexibility. That's something that I think we should all have the option to pursue that, and to have that option. To have the option, have that option. What am I even talking about? It's late now, and I should probably stop my game thoughts, because it's trailed off into just random thoughts. This was actually an idea I had for a podcast. I originally was thinking about like, should I just have one called Random Thoughts? Because sometimes I just go in that direction, and maybe I should just have a podcast where I just ramble on about shit. But it's going to end up happening in anything I talk about because that's my personality. You know, you get to that point where it's like, I can't stop now. I can't stop. I need like a shut off button where it's just like, and I power down. And I can't power down right now, but I probably should. Maybe we'll do that. We'll like force it. We'll force the power down. But I wanted to do something like this. I wanted to talk again without doing a game video where I'm playing a game. I don't want to just always do that. Sometimes I want to just have this like conversation that can be in podcast format where you don't want to watch it. You're just going to see me looking like an idiot talking into my mic, and I probably had a ton of plosives in this one. I apologize for that. I'll try to be more cautious of that in the future. But, right, like I mentioned before that I've got the music I'm working on, and my fucking hand was just too fucked up to do that all today. I practiced it actually earlier because like yesterday I was doing it all day, and then my finger started to get like blistered, and it like literally like touching my cloth of my shirt was painful. I'm like, okay, I need to let this heal before I start trying to do a video playing this thing. Because I'm going to get to a point where I won't even be able to fucking touch the strings anymore. I have to wait until like a callus starts to form here. But by the end of the day today, I'm like, you know what? I think maybe I can do it. And I started to practice it again. And then it started to come back a little. And then I always get to that point where I start getting like exhausted from like, okay, I guess I practiced too long. I can't do it anymore because now I'm just getting like all sloppy, and now I'm doing worse than when I started. And now I feel tired. I feel like worn out. So I'm like, I want to do something. So I'm just going to talk into the microphone until I can do the video I wanted to do, because my plan was by the weekend to put together another little sound project. I wanted to try to do this where like once a week I make something original with some of my instruments to get back into that creative place that I used to be in all the time. And I want to try to like kind of jumpstart it and get back in there and start like regularly creating something new and interesting that I enjoy making. And I figured after, a few weeks of that, I would have like a whole bunch of new original material. It would be cool. And I'm saving the projects if it's on a device that has a save function. If it's like a modular synthesizer or something, obviously not. But like on my Digitact or my Digitone, I can save those projects. Speaking of that Digitone, dude, I fucking messed that thing up. I feel so stupid. I feel so shitty about it. I bought this original like Mark 1 or Model 1 or whatever it's called, Digitone, a few years ago off Reverb. It was like half price, and it came in like really good condition. Like I was surprised how good of a condition it was in. But this was towards the tail end of the pandemic. And I was like, dude, I want to clean it. Like, this is the kind of device that people use with their bare hands. I want to clean it off before I use it. And so I sprayed some IPA on a microfiber towel to like disinfect it and clean off the dirt and stuff. And people's fingers, grease and shit. And it fucking made all the buttons sticky on the device. It like dissolved something on the outside of the button. And I'm like, no, what the fuck? And then I sent an email to Electron to ask if they would sell me like a package of buttons for the front panel. and they never responded to me. And then it's been sitting here now for like almost 2 years unused. And the other day when I went to use it again, the buttons were like way stickier than they used to be. And so they were so sticky, I couldn't even use it. It felt like dirty, wet candy. And so I had no choice but to soak a rag in IPA and like scrub it off. And it still isn't all coming off. It's like dissolving all this rubber and shit off the buttons. And I'm so angry that happened. I feel like I should have never cleaned it. I shouldn't have cleaned. I should have just left it alone, I guess. And so I ruined the damn fucking buttons on this thing, which sucks. Thank God I didn't do it to the Digitac. That thing still feels good. But the Digitone, man, it was like mint until I fucking touched it and then I ruined it. Lesson learned, I guess. I don't know what the hell I would ever use to like disinfect and clean it though. You don't want to just put water on it and just when they say to use like a dry, damp towel, that doesn't do shit on shit ever. The fuck out of here. That doesn't do jack shit to anything. This is a stupid fucking, you can't clean shit with a dry towel, especially if it's dirty. Anyway, I'll save that talk for a different video, my flow state video. So until then, we'll end it here. Goodbye.